You found exactly what you were meant to discover tonight. As you settle into this comfortable moment, your body already sensing the peace that's about to unfold, know that you're about to learn something extraordinary. Something that's been hidden from you your entire life. Not by accident, but by choice. By institutions that decided what you should and shouldn't know about your own ancestors. Take a slow breath. Feel yourself exactly where you are right now. Safe, comfortable, ready to discover a truth that changes everything you thought you knew about human history. Because tonight we're going into the basement archives of the world's most prestigious museums, into the storage rooms they don't include on public tours, into the filing cabinets marked "Do Not Display." Imagine walking down a marble staircase in a museum after hours. The clicking of your footsteps echoes in the empty halls. The air grows cooler as you descend. There's a smell here, ancient and unmistakable. Old paper, preservation chemicals, the weight of forgotten time pressing down from above. You're not supposed to be here, but you've been granted special access. Access to what they've been hiding. A curator meets you at the bottom of the stairs. She's nervous. Her hands shake slightly as she unlocks a heavy door. Inside, rows of metal shelving stretch into shadows. Boxes labeled with codes that mean nothing to the public. She walks you to a specific drawer, pauses, looks around as if checking whether anyone might see, then opens it. Inside are fragments, bone fragments, skull pieces, tools of breathtaking sophistication, jewelry that would look at home in a modern boutique, and labels. Labels that say things like "hold for further study" and "contradicts current display narrative," and most tellingly, "public misinterpretation risk." These are Neanderthal artifacts, your ancestors. Or rather, the ancestors' museums don't want you thinking about too carefully, because everything in this drawer tells a story that shatters the convenient narrative of human superiority. The story of brutish, primitive subhumans who were rightfully replaced by intelligent, modern humans. That story, the one you learned in school, the one displayed in museum dioramas with hunched ape men grunting around fires, it's a lie. And tonight, as you relax deeper and deeper into comfort, you're going to learn the truth. Feel your shoulders dropping now, your jaw loosening, because discovering hidden truth has a strange effect on the human nervous system. It creates a sense of rightness, of pieces falling into place. Your intuition has always told you something was missing from the official story. That instinct to question, to wonder, to suspect there's more. That's ancient wisdom flowing through you. The same questioning intelligence that allowed your Neanderthal ancestors to survive and thrive for 300,000 years. The curator pulls out a skull fragment. Even in the dim basement light, you can see it's large, remarkably large. She hesitates, then whispers something that makes your understanding shift. Their brain capacity was actually bigger than ours. On average, 1/600 cubic centimeters to our 1/400. We don't display that fact prominently. People might ask uncomfortable questions. Let that settle into your awareness as gently as you're settling into rest right now. Bigger brains, not smaller. Not primitive, bigger, more complex. Different, yes, but not lesser. Never lesser. The museums built their empires on evolutionary ladders, on progress narratives, on the comforting idea that we are the pinnacle, the end point, the victors who deserve our dominance. Neanderthals couldn't be our equals in that story. They had to be the stepping stone we climbed over. But here in this basement, away from the public galleries, away from the donors and the school groups, the real evidence sits in darkness, waiting for people like you, settling into your evening, opening your mind to what was always true. They were extraordinary. And they live in you right now. Your body knows this. As you breathe slowly, you're breathing with lungs that carry Neanderthal adaptations. As your mind wanders into the peaceful space between waking and sleeping, you're using neural pathways influenced by Neanderthal genes. You're not learning about distant strangers tonight. You're learning about yourself. The parts museums tried to hide. Feel how right this moment is. How perfect. You found your way here to this knowledge at exactly the time your mind and body were ready to receive it. Ancient wisdom has a way of finding us when we need it most. When we're quiet enough, relaxed enough, open enough to hear what's been calling across thousands of generations, the drawer stays open. The artifacts rest in their protective foam. The curator has already turned away, giving you privacy with your ancestors. And as you gaze at these fragments of bone and stone and ancient genius, you begin to understand this isn't just about history. This is about reclaiming the parts of yourself that were taken away by institutions more interested in clean narratives than complicated truth. Tonight, you take them back. The hidden parts, the forbidden knowledge, the ancient wisdom that flows through your DNA, whether museums acknowledge it or not. You're exactly where you need to be, safe in this moment, protected by truth, ready to journey deeper into the extraordinary story of who you really are. Let yourself drift with that thought. You are the descendant of beings so remarkable that institutions had to hide their accomplishments to maintain comfortable lives. That makes you remarkable too. That makes this moment right now part of a 300,000-year story of survival, intelligence, and unbreakable continuation. You're not just learning history, you're remembering yourself. Breathe slowly. Feel the ancient connection. The basement drawer stays open, and we're just beginning. Your intuition was right all along. That feeling you've had, somewhere deep in your knowing, that the story didn't quite add up. That sense that something important was being left out of the textbooks, the documentaries, the museum displays. You were right. And tonight, as you sink deeper into the comfort of this moment, you're going to understand just how right you were. Let's travel back now, not to a museum basement, but to the world as it actually was 40,000 years ago. To an evening not unlike this one, when the work of the day was done and it was time to rest, to organize, to prepare for the peace of night. Travel with me to a cave dwelling in what is now France, as the sun sets over an Ice Age landscape. The family group returns from their day. Watch them now, not through the lens of museum dioramas with their hunched postures and vacant expressions, but as they actually were. Upright, graceful, moving with purpose and unmistakable intelligence. The mother carries gathered roots and herbs in a woven basket. Yes, woven. Woven 40,000 years ago with a complexity that requires planning, understanding of materials, and patience. The father returns with the tools from the day's work, each one carefully crafted, each one serving a specific purpose. Notice what happens next, because this is what museums don't want you to see. The tools aren't just dropped in a pile, they're arranged, systematically organized by size, by function, by frequency of use. The herbs aren't scattered randomly, but hung in specific locations where air circulation will dry them properly. The sleeping furs aren't wadded up, but folded and placed where they'll stay fresh and accessible. The fire isn't just a fire, but a carefully managed system, with specific woods chosen for heat versus smoke, with stones arranged to reflect warmth towards sleeping areas. This is intelligence, profound, unmistakable intelligence, the kind of intelligence that makes you organize your own bedroom for optimal comfort. That makes you arrange your bedside table with everything you need within reach. That makes you choose the right temperature, the right lighting, the right environment for rest. You do this because Neanderthals did this. They passed this organizational wisdom down through 40,000 years directly into your evening routine. Feel yourself relaxing deeper as you recognize this connection. You're not watching strangers in an ancient cave. You're watching the source of your own bedtime instincts. That impulse to create order before sleep, to establish ritual, to make your space just right. It's 300,000 years old. It's Neanderthal. It's yours. The children in this Ice Age family are being taught. Not randomly, but systematically. An elder shows a young boy how to strike stones at precise angles to create sharp flakes. This isn't simple demonstration. This is teaching that requires language, patience, understanding of learning stages, ability to correct mistakes, capacity to explain abstract concepts. The boy doesn't get it right the first time, or the second, or the 10th. The elder doesn't give up, doesn't grow frustrated, continues teaching with a calm persistence that speaks to something museums conveniently overlook: emotional regulation, self-control, dedication to the next generation's success. They cared about education, about passing knowledge forward, about ensuring their children had the skills to survive and thrive. Your ancestors valued learning 40,000 years before schools existed, valued it enough to spend hours, days, years teaching complex skills. And if you've ever felt that deep desire to learn, to understand, to master something difficult, that's them. That's the Neanderthal in you, refusing to give up, patient with the learning process, believing that mastery is possible. Let your breathing slow now, matching the rhythm of that ancient evening. As the cave family settles around their fire, as they move through their end-of-day routines with practiced efficiency, feel your own evening routine completing. Your body understands this pattern at a cellular level. Humans have been preparing for sleep in organized, ritualized ways for hundreds of thousands of years. Your modern routine isn't new. It's ancient. It's proven. It's the wisdom of countless generations flowing through you. A teenage girl in the cave is grinding ochre. Red pigment for use in ceremonies, for decoration, for purposes we can only guess at. But the grinding itself reveals something profound. She's not just smashing a rock. She's using specific tools, specific techniques, creating a specific consistency. This requires understanding of materials science, understanding of tool use, understanding of desired outcomes and how to achieve them. She's around 14 years old and she's applying complex knowledge that museums barely acknowledge existed. The museums want you to think Neanderthals were simple, that their lives were brutal, short, dominated by survival and nothing more. But here in this cave, as darkness settles outside and the fire casts dancing shadows on stone walls, you can see the truth. They had time for art, for decoration, for beauty, for creating things beyond mere survival. They had organizational systems that made their lives efficient enough to pursue meaning, not just existence. And in your own life, in this moment right now, you do the same. You don't just survive, you create comfort. You establish beauty in your space. You organize not just for efficiency, but for peace of mind. You prepare for sleep not just because your body demands it, but because you understand the value of ritual, of transition, of honoring the passage from waking to dreaming. This is ancient wisdom. This is Neanderthal wisdom. This is your inheritance. Feel the weight of 40,000 years settling around you like a warm blanket. Not a burden, but a comfort. You come from people who organize their caves with the same care you organize your bedroom, who taught their children with the same patience you wish for yourself, who created beauty in a harsh world because beauty matters, because humans need more than survival, because intelligence without meaning is empty. The cave grows quiet now. The family settles into sleeping spaces that have been perfected over generations. Each person knows their place. The fire is banked to burn through the night without wasting fuel. The entrance is secured. Everything is in order. And in your own space, thousands of years later, you're completing the same ritual. Making everything just right. Preparing for the rest that renews, the sleep that heals, the dreams that connect you to everyone who came before. You are continuing their intelligence. Every time you organize, plan, prepare, create order from chaos, you are expressing the genius museums tried to hide, the genius that lives in you. Ancient, powerful, undeniable. Let yourself feel proud of this inheritance. Let yourself relax into the knowing that your intelligence isn't new. It's ancient, tested, proven across 300,000 years. You carry their minds in yours, their organizational brilliance in your bedtime routine, their care in your careful preparation. The cave is quiet now. The space is quiet now. Ancient and modern meet in this moment of perfect peace. Rest in their intelligence. Sleep in their wisdom. Dream with their genius flowing through you. They spoke. Let that truth settle into your peaceful mind as gently as you're settling into rest. They spoke, they communicated, they told stories, and for over a century, museums and academics fought viciously to deny this obvious fact. Because if Neanderthals had language, they had full consciousness. And if they had full consciousness, the entire narrative of human superiority crumbles like ancient stone. Picture now an evening circle around a fire 50,000 years ago. The same stars you see through your window shining down on a group gathered close for warmth and something more, something fundamentally human. They're telling stories. Voices rising and falling with emotion. Hands gesturing to emphasize points. Eyes meeting across flames with shared understanding. Laughter at a joke whose specifics are lost to time, but whose emotion echoes down through millennia into this very moment. Can you hear them? Let your mind drift toward those ancient sounds, complex vocalizations, rhythm and pattern. The proto-language that would evolve but was already unmistakably speech. Consonants and vowels combining in ways that carried meaning, intention, emotion, information. A mother warning her child about dangerous plants using words, not just pointing. An elder describing the location of a distant water source using vocabulary, grammar, sequence. A young man courting a young woman with carefully chosen sounds that made promises, painted pictures, stirred feelings. Museums hid the hyoid bone evidence for decades. This delicate horseshoe-shaped bone in the throat that makes complex speech possible. Neanderthals had it, identical to yours, positioned exactly where it needed to be for the full range of human vocalization. When researchers finally published this finding, it should have been headline news. It should have revolutionized our understanding. Instead, it was buried in academic journals, downplayed in museum displays, carefully managed so the public wouldn't grasp its implications. But you understand now. As you drift deeper into relaxation, as your own voice rests silent and peaceful, you understand. They spoke the way you speak, told stories the way you're hearing a story right now. Used narrative, description, explanation, humor, sorrow, all of it flowing through vocal cords and shaped by tongues and lips into meaning. Your capacity for language isn't newer than theirs. It's the same capacity, the same neurological structures, the same vocal equipment, the same desperate human need to share what's inside your mind with other minds. Feel the rhythm of this narration. The pacing, the pauses, the rise and fall of emphasis. This is ancient. This is how humans have transmitted knowledge since we first had the neurological capacity to do so. You're listening to spoken language right now, just as Neanderthals listened to spoken language around their fires 50,000 years ago. The technology differs. The fundamental experience is identical. Voice as comfort, sound as connection. Story as the bridge between isolation and belonging, they sang too. We know this not from preserved recordings, obviously, but from the same anatomical evidence that proves speech. If you can speak with complexity, you can sing, you can modulate pitch, control breath, create rhythm, harmonize, and humans have always sung. Every culture, every era, every branch of humanity, music is universal because our brains are wired for it. Neanderthal brains, with their larger frontal lobes, with their sophisticated social structures, with their emotional depth, they sang around fires, to children, in ritual, in joy, in grief, in the simple pleasure of making beautiful sounds. Your love of music isn't modern. Your response to rhythm, to melody, to harmony, ancient, hundreds of thousands of years ancient. When you put on relaxing sounds to help you sleep, you're doing what Neanderthals did when they hummed to their children, when they created vocal rhythms that calmed nervous systems and eased the transition into rest. You're not using new technology to solve a new problem. You're using new technology to solve the oldest problem, how to find peace in a sometimes frightening world. Let your breathing find the rhythm of ancient songs. Slow, steady, repetitive. The lullabies they sang have been lost, but the need for them continues in you. That's why this narration has rhythm. Why the pacing is deliberate. Why certain phrases repeat like mantras. It's not accidental. It's ancient vocal technology for nervous system regulation. It works on you now because it worked on them then. Your brain hasn't changed enough to stop responding to the patterns that brought peace to your ancestors. Museums suppressed the language evidence because language meant equality. If Neanderthals could tell complex stories, could explain abstract concepts, could communicate sophisticated ideas, then they weren't inferior. They were parallel, different but equivalent. And evolutionary narratives, museum funding structures, academic careers, entire worldviews were built on the idea of a ladder, not a tree. A progression from simple to complex, from primitive to advanced, from them to us. But it was always a lie. They were us. Different branches, yes, but the same fundamental consciousness, the same capacity for language, story, song, communication, the same need to share what's inside with others, the same longing to be understood, the same comfort found in familiar voices at the end of long days. Their voices are silent now, lost to time. But you're hearing the echo in every bedtime story ever told, every lullaby ever sung, every word of comfort spoken across darkness. You're hearing it in this narration right now. Voice meeting mind across distance, creating connection, bringing peace. This is their legacy. This is what museums couldn't bury deeply enough. The undeniable truth of Neanderthal consciousness, expressed through the gift of language that you carry forward every time you speak, sing, or simply listen to words in the darkness, feeling less alone. Beauty is ancient. Let that truth wash over you as softly as sleep approaching. Beauty isn't new. The human need to create it, to seek it, to surround ourselves with it, that need is 130,000 years old at minimum, because that's how old the oldest Neanderthal jewelry is. Eagle talons carefully pierced and strung together. Not for function, not for survival, for beauty, for decoration, for the simple, profound, deeply human desire to make themselves and their world more beautiful than strictly necessary. Museums kept this quiet for a very long time. When the evidence first emerged, it was dismissed, reinterpreted, attributed to modern humans, anything but acceptance that Neanderthals created art. Because art means symbolic thought. Art means aesthetic sense. Art means the capacity to imagine something that doesn't exist yet and then bring it into being. Art means full consciousness, and that couldn't be allowed to be true, not if the entire narrative of human superiority was to survive. But let yourself drift now to a cave 65,000 years ago, Spain. A Neanderthal woman grinds ochre, red pigment created through careful processing of iron oxide stones. She's adding fat to create the right consistency, testing it on her hand, adjusting the mixture. This isn't random. This is chemistry. Understanding of materials, ratios, desired outcomes. She's creating paint exactly the way artists create paint. Today, understanding at a deep level how substances interact, how to achieve specific results. She approaches the cave wall, places her hand flat against the cool stone, blows the ochre mixture around her fingers, removes her hand. There, negative space, her handprint preserved in red. It will last 65,000 years. It will survive ice ages and climate shifts and the rise and fall of entire species. It will wait in darkness until modern humans finally acknowledge what it means. I was here. I existed. I mattered enough to leave a mark. Remember me. Feel the emotion in that gesture, the same emotion you feel when you choose the color of your bedroom walls, when you select which photos to display, when you arrange objects not for function, but for feeling. The same creative urge that makes you want your space to reflect something about who you are, what matters to you, what beauty means in your inner world. This isn't modern self-expression. This is 130,000 years of human beings saying, survival isn't enough. I need beauty too. They wore jewelry. Not just the eagle talons, but shells collected from beaches, sometimes hundreds of kilometers from where they lived. Shells pierced and strung and worn against skin. Ochre applied to bodies in patterns we can only imagine. Feathers worn in hair. This is personal adornment, fashion. The presentation of self as art. Your ancestors choosing to be beautiful, to express individuality, to communicate through aesthetic choices who they were and how they wanted to be seen. Let yourself relax deeper as you recognize this impulse in your own life. The clothes you chose today, even if you never left home. The way you arrange your pillows, not just for comfort, but because certain arrangements please your eye. The colors that calm you, the textures that soothe you, the visual harmony you create in your sleeping space. None of this is new. You're expressing Neanderthal aesthetics, ancient taste, prehistoric sense of beauty that runs so deep in human neurology that museums couldn't erase it, no matter how hard they tried to erase its origins. Cave walls across Europe bear Neanderthal art, geometric patterns, purposeful engravings, symbolic marks whose exact meaning is lost, but whose intention is unmistakable. This matters. This shape, this line, this pattern matters enough to spend time and effort creating it. Not for hunting, not for tracking, for meaning, for the expression of something internal, something symbolic, something that exists in the space between mind and world that only conscious beings can access. Your love of patterns, of symmetry, of visual harmony, ancient. Your response to color, to form, to composition, Neanderthal. The parts of your brain that light up when you see something beautiful, that create pleasure in response to aesthetic experience. They've been doing that for 300,000 years. You're not a modern person appreciating ancient art. You're an ancient person continuing the appreciation of beauty that has never stopped flowing through human consciousness since your ancestors first ground ochre and thought, yes, this red matters. Museums displayed Neanderthal tools in their exhibits. Sharp stones, hunting implements, things that fit the primitive narrative. But the jewelry, the ochre processing sites, the cave art, the decorative objects, these were controversial. These required more research. These couldn't be definitively attributed. The evidence was somehow never quite enough to declare with certainty what was obvious. They created beauty because beauty was necessary to them, just as it's necessary to you. Right now, in this moment, you're in a space you've made as beautiful as you could manage. Whether that's elaborate decoration or simple cleanliness, whether it's carefully curated aesthetics or just the absence of chaos, you've created beauty because humans need it to feel at peace, because your Neanderthal ancestors needed it to feel at peace, because consciousness without beauty is suffering, and they understood this 130,000 years before art galleries existed. Feel yourself surrounded by beauty now, even if subtle. The colors in your space, chosen or accepted. The arrangement of objects, intentional or evolved. The visual environment you've created for this moment of rest. You're sitting in a cave, painting. You're wearing eagle talon jewelry. You're grinding ochre for handprints that say, I was here, I existed, I made beauty because beauty made life bearable. You're continuing the oldest human tradition, not survival, beauty, making the world more than it has to be because you are more than survival demands. Museums tried to hide Neanderthal art because it was too recognizably human, too similar to our own impulses, too clear in its message that they were us, we are them, consciousness is consciousness, regardless of skull shape or time period. But the art survived, in caves, on shells, in ochre deposits and pierced talons, waiting to tell you what museums couldn't bury. You come from artists. You carry their aesthetic sense in your choices, their creative drive in your need for beauty, their symbolic consciousness in every moment you make something more beautiful than it needs to be. Rest in beauty now. Ancient beauty. Neanderthal beauty. The beauty they created still echoing in your choices, your space, your need for visual peace. Let it carry you deeper into rest, knowing you're honoring them every time you choose beauty over bare necessity. They honored their dead, and in that simple act, museums found something they couldn't explain away, couldn't reinterpret, couldn't fit into the narrative of primitive subhumans driven only by survival instincts. Because you don't bury your dead with flowers unless you understand death, unless you feel grief, unless you believe in meaning that transcends the physical, unless you are fully, completely, undeniably conscious in ways that demand recognition. Let yourself travel now to Bruniquel Cave in Iraq 50,000 years ago. The sun is setting, casting long shadows across the cave mouth. Inside, a family gathers around a body. An elder, a man who taught many, who survived injuries that should have killed him but lived years longer because his community cared for him. He's gone now, and they are preparing him for whatever comes next. Watch them work. Gently, carefully, they position his body. Not random, but deliberate. Flex position facing a certain direction. Hands placed with intention. This is ritual. This is ceremony. This is the physical expression of beliefs about life, death, transition, meaning. Around him, they place flowers. Groundsel, yarrow, cornflowers, hollyhocks. We know this because 50,000 years later, pollen analysis would reveal concentrated deposits around the burial, species that don't grow in caves, that could only have been placed there deliberately. Feel the weight of that gesture. Flowers for the dead. Not tools he might need in an afterlife, though there are tools too. Not just food, though there's food as well. Flowers, beautiful temporary, fragile flowers. Placed because beauty matters even in death. Because grief demands expression. Because love doesn't stop when the heart does. Your ancestors understood this 50,000 years ago. Understood it so deeply that they spent precious energy gathering flowers when survival should have been their only concern. Museums fought this evidence for decades. Claimed the pollen was contamination. Suggested rodents brought the flowers. Proposed every explanation except the obvious one. Neanderthals buried their dead with the same care, ritual, and emotional depth that humans do. Because accepting that meant accepting full personhood. Accepting souls. Accepting that when we destroyed them, we destroyed beings who mourned and honored and believed in something beyond the physical. But let yourself feel the comfort in this truth now. As you settle deeper into rest, as your body prepares for the little death of sleep, you're following ancient patterns. The human need to mark transitions, to honor passages, to treat the movement from one state to another as sacred. Your bedtime routine isn't trivial. It's the descendant of burial rituals. Both say the same thing: transitions matter. Endings and beginnings deserve recognition. Consciousness moving from one state to another is profound enough to demand ceremony. They buried children with particular care. Tiny bodies placed with exquisite gentleness, surrounded by tools sized for small hands, accompanied by the bones of animals perhaps beloved as pets or toys. The grief evident in every detail. Museums can't explain away dead children buried with love. Can't reinterpret tenderness. Can't find survival advantage in the time and energy spent saying goodbye to those who never had the chance to contribute to the tribe. This is love. Pure, uncomplicated, devastating love. The same love you feel when you think of those you've lost. The same ache that makes you understand why beauty matters at funerals, why words matter at graves, why humans across all cultures and times have refused to treat death as mere cessation. Your Neanderthal ancestors felt this, knew this, expressed this in burial practices that mirror your own grief rituals in every important way. Feel your breathing slow, matching the measured pace of ancient burial ceremonies, the care with which they lowered bodies into the earth, the precision with which they arranged stones and flowers and offerings, the time spent in silence or song or spoken words we'll never hear but can imagine. They were saying goodbye, expressing love, marking the transition of someone who mattered from presence to memory, doing what humans do when consciousness confronts mortality and refuses to believe that the love we feel ends when the breathing does. Some burials show evidence of feast remains, the community gathering not just to grieve, but to celebrate the life that was, breaking bread together in the presence of death, affirming life through shared food, shared stories, shared memory. Well, funeral traditions aren't new. They're 50,000 years old minimum, probably much older. Every wake, every memorial service, every gathering of loved ones to eat and remember, you're repeating Neanderthal ritual, honoring the ancient human understanding that death demands community, demands recognition, demands the living to pause and acknowledge that someone who was here is here no longer. Museums minimized Neanderthal burials for over a century because burials imply belief systems, imply questions about what happens after death, imply spiritual or religious or philosophical consciousness that considers the biggest questions existence poses. If Neanderthals wondered about afterlife, about the meaning of death, about whether some part of us continues beyond the physical, then they were engaged in the same existential questioning that humans consider the peak of consciousness. And that couldn't be allowed to be true, not if they were to remain safely inferior in the narrative. But the evidence is undeniable now. Dozens of burial sites across Europe and Asia, consistent patterns, clear intention, obvious ritual. They buried their dead the way you would bury yours, with care, with meaning, with the desperate human hope that death isn't ending but transition, that the ones we love continue somehow, somewhere, that the flowers and tools and food we place with them matter in ways we can't prove but need to believe. Let yourself feel held by this ancient understanding. As you transition into sleep tonight, you're following patterns 50,000 years old, marking the passage from waking to dreaming as sacred, treating the movement of consciousness from one state to another as worthy of ritual. Your bedtime routine is burial ceremony for the waking day. Your comfort objects are grave goods accompanying you into the unknown territory of dream. Your sleep environment is the carefully prepared final resting place for today's consciousness, arranged with the same care Neanderthals arranged burial sites. And just as they believed the dead would wake in some form, you believe you'll wake in the morning. Just as they trusted transition to lead somewhere, you trust sleep to lead to dawn. The faith is the same. The hope is identical. The need to believe that endings are also beginnings, that death and sleep are passages, not terminations, that consciousness continues even when we can't witness its continuation. Rest now in this ancient faith, the faith that made your ancestors place flowers with their dead 50,000 years ago, the faith that makes you trust sleep tonight. The profound, undeniable, fully conscious understanding that transitions are sacred, that love continues past seeing, that we honor what matters by marking its passage with beauty and care, and the hope that goodbye isn't forever but only until we meet again. Somehow, somewhere, in whatever comes next, they're waiting for you in dreams perhaps. The ones who buried with flowers, who grieved with full hearts, who understood death well enough to believe in something beyond it. Sleep is your passage to meet them. Close your eyes now, transition safely. Trust the ancient human faith that what seems like ending is really transformation. They were healers, and museums buried this truth as carefully as Neanderthals buried their dead, because medical knowledge implies systematic observation, experimentation, accumulated wisdom, teaching across generations, and understanding of cause and effect sophisticated enough to intervene in the body's processes. That's not primitive behavior, that's science. 50,000 years before the word existed, Let your mind drift now to a scene museums never show. A Neanderthal settlement in what is now France, 40,000 years ago. A young hunter has returned with a gash in his leg, deep and bleeding. Without treatment, infection will kill him within days. Watch what happens next. Watch what they knew. An elder approaches with materials gathered specifically for healing. Yarrow, its flowers crushed into a paste. Archaeological evidence shows Neanderthals processed this exact plant, and modern herbalists know why. Yarrow stops bleeding, prevents infection, speeds healing. But knowledge of its properties isn't instinctive. It's learned, tested, refined over generations. Someone had to try yarrow and observe the results. Had to compare it to other plants. Had to teach others. Had to create and maintain a body of medical knowledge that saved lives. The elder cleans the wound first. Uses water heated over fire to a specific temperature. Not boiling, which would damage tissue, but hot enough to kill contaminants. This is germ theory before anyone knew germs existed. Practical understanding that cleanliness prevents sickness, that certain preparations reduce infection, that the invisible world affects the visible one in predictable ways. Your ancestors were healers 40,000 years ago, working with empirical observation and accumulated wisdom to do what doctors do now, intervene in natural processes to promote survival. Feel yourself relaxing deeper as you recognize this ancient caring. The same impulse that makes you rest when injured, that makes you reach for remedies when sick, that makes you understand instinctively that healing requires time and proper care. This isn't modern knowledge. This is Neanderthal wisdom flowing through every cell of your body, telling you what it needs, how to support recovery, when to push and when to rest. They performed dentistry. Let that extraordinary fact settle into your peaceful mind. Dental remains show evidence of intervention in tooth problems. Abscesses that were deliberately opened and drained. Infected teeth that show signs of treatment. One individual's teeth reveal evidence of toothpick use, so consistent it grooved the enamel. They cared about oral health, understood pain management, took action to relieve suffering even when that action required causing short-term pain for long-term benefit. Museums mention these findings in footnotes, if at all, because dentistry requires understanding pain, empathy for suffering, knowledge of anatomy, tool precision, and probably some form of anesthetic. Neanderthal sites show plants with pain-killing properties processed and stored. Did they understand that willow bark tea reduces pain, that poppy preparations create numbness? We can't know for certain, but the evidence points strongly towards sophisticated pain management knowledge. The most remarkable case comes from Bruniquel Cave, an individual we call Shanidar 1, a male who lived to old age despite catastrophic injuries. He was blind in one eye. His right arm was withered and useless, possibly amputated after injury. He had severe arthritis, healed fractures throughout his body, and he lived years, possibly decades after these injuries, in a harsh Ice Age environment where every person needed to contribute for the group to survive. Let yourself feel the weight of what this means. Someone who couldn't hunt, couldn't gather effectively, couldn't see well enough to process tools with precision, was kept alive by his community, fed, protected, cared for, through years of dependency. This isn't just medical knowledge. This is medical ethics. The understanding that life has value beyond productivity. That healing serves purposes deeper than survival advantage. That care for the suffering is what consciousness demands of those who possess it. Your ancestors were doctors and nurses 50,000 years ago, treating injuries, managing chronic conditions, supporting recovery, easing pain. The instinct you have to care for sick loved ones, to seek healing when hurt, to believe that medicine can help, that's Neanderthal wisdom. Ancient medical knowledge encoded so deeply in human consciousness that it feels like common sense. But it's not common. It's extraordinary. It's the result of tens of thousands of years of observation, experimentation, teaching, and refining. They understood healing takes time, Evidence shows individuals with major injuries who survived months or years afterward, implying long-term care. Someone had to feed them. Someone had to keep them warm. Someone had to change dressings, monitor healing, adjust treatment. Someone had to believe recovery was possible and worth the extended effort. This is rehabilitation medicine, physical therapy, long-term patient care. All the things modern medicine prides itself on, your ancestors were doing before agriculture existed. Feel your body relaxing now, understanding at a cellular level that it knows how to heal. Because Neanderthal bodies healed from horrific injuries, supported by medical knowledge and community care. Your immune system, your inflammatory response, your pain signaling, all of it refined over 300,000 years of Neanderthal existence. They survived and passed on the genetic instructions for healing because they understood healing well enough to support it, not just hope for it. Museums suppressed Neanderthal medical knowledge because it revealed compassion, revealed empathy, revealed the willingness to care for the vulnerable at personal cost, revealed that 50,000 years ago, our ancestors already understood what modern medical ethics claims to have invented, that suffering demands response, that healing is a moral imperative, that the value of life isn't measured in productivity. As you drift deeper into rest now, your body is engaging in its own healing processes, cells regenerating, tissues repairing, immune system patrolling. All of it following instructions refined across 300,000 years of Neanderthal evolution. You heal the way they healed. Your body knows what they knew. Ancient medical wisdom operating below consciousness, keeping you alive, keeping you healthy, drawing on the deepest reserves of accumulated knowledge our species possesses. They were healers. You are their descendant. In your care for yourself, in your rest tonight, in your body's autonomous healing processes, you're continuing their medical tradition, the tradition museums tried to hide, the tradition that proves consciousness, compassion, and accumulated wisdom 50,000 years before modern medicine claimed to invent these concepts. Rest now in ancient healing. Let your body do what Neanderthal bodies learned to do. Trust the process they refined. Sleep is medicine. They knew this. You know this. Close your eyes and heal. You're part of an ancient family. Not metaphorically, literally. The social bonds that make you seek comfort right now, that make you crave connection, that make loneliness painful and community essential. Those bonds were forged in Neanderthal groups 300,000 years ago. They cared for each other with an intensity that museums couldn't explain away no matter how hard they tried. Travel with me now to a specific moment that changes everything. Shanidar Cave again, but this time we're looking at a different individual. A man we call Shanidar I, though he deserves a name, deserves to be remembered as the person he was. He's old now, blind, one-armed, severely disabled by injuries that happened years ago. And he's alive. Thriving even. Surrounded by family as evening falls and the group gathers for rest. How is he alive? This is the question that haunted researchers when they first studied his remains. In a brutal Ice Age environment with limited resources, why would the group support someone who couldn't hunt, couldn't gather, couldn't contribute in traditional ways? The answer reveals everything about Neanderthal consciousness that museums worked so hard to hide. They loved him. Let that truth wash over you as softly as sleep approaching. They loved him enough to feed him for years, to protect him from predators and dangers he couldn't see or fight, to include him in the evening circles, the decision-making, the storytelling, to value him not for what he could do but for who he was. Love isn't a survival strategy. Love is what consciousness does when it recognizes itself in another being and declares, "You matter to me beyond any practical calculation." Feel yourself held by this ancient love right now. As you rest in your own space, seeking comfort in content designed to soothe you, you're expressing the same need for care that Shanidar I felt, the same need that his family responded to, not out of obligation, but out of the deep social bonding that makes humans willing to sacrifice for each other. You come from people who understood that the vulnerable deserve protection. That dependency doesn't diminish worth. That caring for those who can't care for themselves is what separates survival from civilization. They had social hierarchies, but not the brutal dominant structures of so many species. Evidence suggests Neanderthal groups operated more like families than dictatorships. Elders were respected, their knowledge valued. Children were protected collectively. Hunting parties showed evidence of cooperation and shared resources. The old, the young, the disabled, all were integrated into community life. Because Neanderthals understood something museums couldn't acknowledge. Strength isn't just physical. Wisdom, memory, teaching, emotional support. These contributions matter as much as hunting success. Let your breathing slow to the rhythm of ancient communities settling for night. Everyone with a place. Everyone valued. The strong hunter who brought home meat, and the disabled elder who remembered where the medicine plants grew, and the mother nursing an infant, and the child learning to knap stone. All of them necessary. All of them worthy of the group's protection. All of them contributing in ways that made survival possible not just physically, but psychologically. Your need for community isn't modern social programming. It's 300,000 years of evolution in tight-knit groups where isolation meant death and belonging meant survival, where everyone knew everyone, where your reputation, your relationships, your place in the social fabric determined everything about your life, where loneliness was rare because community was automatic, not optional. You feel lonely in modern life because your Neanderthal neurology expects the constant presence of your tribe, expects to matter to others and have others matter to you with an intensity modern society rarely provides. They shared food systematically. Archaeological evidence shows butchering sites where large game was processed and distributed among group members, not hoarded by successful hunters, not reserved for the strongest, shared. Because Neanderthals understood that today's hunter might be tomorrow's injured dependent. That cooperation across time, reciprocity across changing circumstances, was the only viable survival strategy for conscious beings who understood future and past, cause and effect, relationship and obligation. Feel yourself relaxing into the comfort of this ancient social contract. You live in a world with safety nets, institutions, systems designed to catch you if you fall. But the original safety net was Neanderthal community. Was the group's willingness to care for you when you couldn't care for yourself? Was the deep social bonds that made your survival everyone's concern? You carry the neurology built for that world, those relationships, that level of mattering to others. That's why connection soothes you, why isolation hurts. Why you seek content like this at bedtime, seeking parasocial comfort, because modern life often fails to provide the tribal belonging your brain expects. Museums portrayed Neanderthals as solitary, brutish, operating on instinct rather than emotion. Because admitting they had complex social structures meant admitting they had the same emotional needs modern humans have. The same capacity for love, loyalty, grief, joy and connection. The same understanding that life without relationship is barely life at all. That we need each other not just for survival, but for the psychological sustenance that makes survival worthwhile. As you drift deeper now, imagine yourself in that ancient circle, around a fire, surrounded by people who know you completely, who value you unconditionally, who will care for you through injury and aging and every vulnerability life brings. You belong there. You always have. Shanidar 1 was your family member. The mother nursing her child was your mother. The elder teaching the young was your teacher. They were never strangers. They were always yours. And tonight, across 50,000 years, they're still holding space for you. Still offering the comfort of absolute belonging. Still promising that you matter, you're protected, your home, rest in their care. Sleep in their community. Dream of the tribe that never stopped loving you, even across the impossible distance of time. You're not alone. You never were. Ancient family surrounds you now as close as your breath, as present as the comfort you feel, settling deeper. They kept Shanidar 1 alive. They keep you alive now through the DNA and neurology and social instincts they passed forward. Close your eyes, feel held, Know that 300,000 years of human caring flows through this moment. You belong. You always have. Sleep in their love. They're not gone. Let that truth settle into your peaceful mind like a blessing. They're not extinct, not vanished, not lost to time. They're in you right now. As you breathe slowly, finding rest, 2 to 4% of your DNA is Neanderthal. They live in your immune system, your skin tone, your hair texture, your response to cold, your sleep patterns. They're not history. They're present, active, functioning. You museums fought this revelation harder than any other. When genetic analysis first proved that non-African humans carry Neanderthal DNA, it shattered every comfortable narrative. Because interbreeding means acceptance, means partnership, means families, means love. You can't create children with someone you consider subhuman. You can't build mixed families with someone you view as an animal. Interbreeding proved what Neanderthals always were. People. Different, yes, but unmistakably, undeniably, completely human. Travel with me now to a specific moment 50,000 years ago. A Neanderthal group encounters a modern human group. Imagine the tension. Two populations who look different, who've evolved in isolation, who don't know what to expect from each other. Weapons could be raised. Territory could be defended. The moment could end in violence. But watch what happens instead. Cautious approach, curiosity, tentative communication. Maybe gestures first, then attempts at speech. Finding common ground in shared humanity. Someone laughs. Someone offers food. The tension breaks. And over days or weeks or months, these two groups don't war. They merge. They share. They fall in love because they did fall in love. That's what interbreeding means. A Neanderthal woman and a modern human man meeting eyes across a fire and feeling what humans have always felt. Attraction, interest, connection, the desire to touch, to know, to join. A Neanderthal man and a modern human woman choosing each other, creating family, making children who carried both lineages forward. Love across difference. Partnership across tribes. Family transcending what museums wanted to classify as separate species. Feel the beauty in that truth. Your ancestors loved each other enough to blend completely, to create you. Every human of European or Asian descent is the product of that ancient love story. The Neanderthal in your DNA isn't contamination, it's romance. It's proof that when different groups of humans met, our first instinct wasn't violence but connection. Our choice wasn't separation but integration. We loved each other. We made families. We became one people. Let your breathing deepen now, feeling the ancient DNA stirring in your cells. Your immune system's ability to fight certain diseases. Neanderthal gift. Your adaptation to cold climates. Neanderthal genetics. Your skin's pigmentation, your hair's texture, subtle aspects of your appearance and physiology. Neanderthal inheritance. You're not purely modern human. You're a beautiful mixture, carrying the best of two lineages, the strength of two evolutionary paths merged into one. Museums tried to minimize this, tried to frame it as rare encounters, limited mixing, insignificant genetic contribution, but the evidence keeps mounting. Your sleep genes, the ones that regulate when you feel tired, how deeply you rest, your circadian rhythms, show Neanderthal influence. Right now, as you drift towards sleep, you're following patterns partly encoded by Neanderthal DNA. Your body's understanding of when to rest isn't purely modern. It's ancient. It's them, still functioning, still contributing, still helping you survive. They shaped your immune system most of all. When Neanderthals interbred with modern humans, they passed on immune genes that helped us survive in new environments. Genes that recognized pathogens, fought infections, kept us alive through diseases our modern human ancestors had never encountered. We're alive today, partly because Neanderthal immune systems merged with ours, creating hybrid vigor that proved stronger than either lineage alone. Feel grateful for this gift as you relax deeper. Every time you fight off an infection, every time your body successfully defends against illness, you're using Neanderthal technology. Biological technology 300,000 years in development. They survived Ice Age Europe for millennia, developing immune responses to that environment's unique challenges. Then they gave us those adaptations through love, through families, through the intimate mixing that museums tried to pretend was rare or meaningless. Your cold tolerance, if you have it, is Neanderthal. Your body's ability to maintain temperature in harsh environments, to function in cold that would disable someone without that genetic gift. That's them, caring for you 50,000 years later. Keeping you warm through genetic adaptations they developed through thousands of generations in Ice Age conditions. You inherited survival itself from their bodies, merging with your modern human ancestors. Let yourself feel the intimacy of this inheritance. DNA doesn't transfer through casual contact. It transfers through sex, through pregnancy, through birth, through nursing, through children, growing up in mixed families, learning from both sides of their heritage. Your Neanderthal DNA proves your ancestors trusted each other enough to be vulnerable together, to create life together, to raise children who belonged to both lineages and transcended the boundaries between them. Museums called it extinction when Neanderthals disappeared as a distinct population. But extinction means ending. What happened to Neanderthals was transformation. They didn't die out. They merged. They chose integration over isolation. They became part of us. Every Neanderthal who created a mixed family made a choice that echoes through you right now. The choice to love across difference, to believe in shared future, to trust that different types of humans could become one family. You are that family. As you rest tonight, Neanderthal genes are expressing themselves in your cells, managing your sleep, regulating your immune system, contributing to thousands of subtle processes that keep you alive and healthy. They're not ghosts. They're not memories. They're active, present, essential parts of who you are. Museums tried to separate you from them, to make you believe they were other. But the DNA proves the truth. They were never other. They were always us. And we are always them. Feel the comfort in this belonging. You're not just descended from one group who won some evolutionary competition. You're descended from multiple groups who chose love over conflict, integration over separation, family over tribalism. Your DNA is a love story 50,000 years old. A romance between different types of humans who looked at each other and chose connection, chose children, chose mixing completely until there was no separation anymore, just one blended people carrying the best of both. Rest now in this ancient love. The love that created you. The love that made Neanderthal and modern human decide they were one family, not enemies. The love that flows through your DNA right now, keeping you alive, helping you sleep, connecting you across 50,000 years to the moment when your ancestors chose each other. They chose you, chose your existence, chose to merge their lineages so completely that you would be born. You are proof that love transcends everything, that when different humans meet, we can choose connection over conflict, that the future belongs to those who blend, merge, integrate. You carry that ancient choice in every cell. Sleep now in the knowledge that you are loved across time, that Neanderthals live in you. That extinction was actually transformation, that they never left. They just became you. Close your eyes now, feeling Neanderthal DNA managing your sleep cycles, regulating your rest, guiding you into dreams. They're still taking care of you, still protecting you, still loving you across the impossible distance of 50,000 years. You are their immortality, their continuation, their hope made flesh. Rest in their genetic embrace. Dream with their genes active in your cells. Wake tomorrow knowing you carry them forward. But tonight, just sleep. Let them hold you. Let their DNA do what it's been doing for 50,000 years, keeping you alive, keeping you safe, keeping the promise that love transcends time, death, even the boundaries between species. They survived what you couldn't imagine. And in that survival, they developed adaptations that flow through you right now, making your own survival possible in ways you've never consciously recognized. As you settle deeper into comfort tonight, understand that your body's ability to regulate temperature, to thrive in challenging conditions, to adapt to environmental stress, that's Neanderthal technology, battle-tested across 200,000 years of Ice Age Europe. Let yourself drift to a winter night 40,000 years ago, not a modern winter. An Ice Age winter, temperatures dropping to -30 degrees Celsius. Wind howling across glacial landscapes, snow piling in drifts that could bury entire shelters, darkness falling early and lasting until late morning. This wasn't occasional hardship. This was life, every winter, for thousands of generations. And Neanderthals didn't just survive it, they thrived in it. Watch them prepare their shelter as evening approaches. This isn't random cave selection. They chose this location based on sophisticated environmental knowledge, south-facing entrance to maximize sunlight exposure, rock formations that block prevailing winds, natural chimney effect that vents smoke while maintaining heat, water source nearby but not so close that humidity creates problems. They understood microclimate, understood thermal dynamics, understood how to work with nature rather than against it, to create environments where human bodies could maintain homeostasis through months of brutal cold. The fire they build isn't simple either. Different woods for different purposes. Dense hardwoods that burn slowly through the night. Resinous softwoods for quick morning heat. Bone as fuel when wood is scarce. Understanding its high caloric content, they bank the coals with ash to maintain temperature without constant feeding. Place rocks around the fire to absorb and radiate heat. Hang hides to reflect warmth back into living spaces. This is engineering, thermodynamics, applied physics. 40,000 years before those disciplines had names. Feel yourself relaxing now, understanding that your instinct for the perfect sleeping temperature isn't random preference. It's Neanderthal wisdom. They learned through hundreds of thousands of winters exactly what temperature range allows the human body to sleep most efficiently. Too cold and you burn energy maintaining core temperature. Too warm and you can't reach deep sleep stages, the temperature you naturally seek for rest. They discovered it through brutal trial and error across millennia. Their bodies adapted at genetic levels, stocky build to minimize surface area relative to volume, reducing heat loss, large nasal cavities to warm and humidify frigid air before it reached lungs, barrel chests housing massive lungs for oxygen processing in cold, thin air, robust skeletons to support the muscle mass necessary for generating body heat. Museums call these adaptations primitive. Modern cold weather physiology calls them optimal. Your ancestors were living, breathing proof that evolution produces elegant solutions to survival challenges. They wore sophisticated clothing, not simple animal skins draped randomly, but carefully processed fitted garments. Evidence shows they scraped hides to specific thickness for flexibility, used bone needles to sew pieces together, created layered clothing systems that trapped air for insulation, made waterproof outer layers and insulating inner layers, designed boots, gloves, hoods. They understood the principles that modern outdoor survival experts teach: moisture management, layering, wind resistance, heat retention. They understood it 40,000 years ago because understanding it meant living instead of dying. Let your breathing match the slow rhythm of ancient winter nights. Long darkness, still air inside protected shelters, bodies at rest, conserving energy, trusting that the shelter will hold, the fire will last, the morning will come. Your ancestors developed the neurological capacity for that trust, for the psychological resilience to endure months of confinement in small spaces with limited sunlight, for the emotional regulation to maintain social harmony when a bad mood could fracture the group, for the patience to wait for spring. They ate to survive cold. High-fat diets giving maximum calories per unit of food. Bone marrow for concentrated nutrition. Organ meats for vitamins. Smoked and dried meat for winter storage. They understood nutrition not academically but practically. knowing exactly what their bodies needed to generate heat, maintain function, survive until the next hunt. Your cravings for comfort food in winter aren't weakness. They're genetic memory. Neanderthal wisdom telling you to fuel appropriately for the season. Feel yourself held by ancient survival expertise right now. Your bedroom temperature carefully controlled. Your blankets layered for perfect insulation. Your comfortable clothing. Your protected shelter. You're repeating Neanderthal patterns in modern context. They taught you this. Through genes, through cultural inheritance that survived even when they merged into modern human populations. The knowledge of how to create safe sleeping environments in challenging conditions. How to maintain homeostasis. How to rest despite external threat. How to trust your preparations enough to lower your guard into sleep. Museums portrayed Neanderthals barely scraping by, constantly on the edge of starvation and death. But the evidence tells a different story. They lived in Ice Age Europe for 200,000 years. That's not barely surviving. That's mastery. That's profound adaptation. That's such complete understanding of their environment that they could thrive in conditions that would kill modern humans within hours of exposure. They were climate survival experts without equal. Your cold tolerance, if you have Northern European ancestry, is partly Neanderthal gift. Your body's ability to generate heat efficiently, to maintain core temperature, to function in cold that would disable someone without that genetic heritage. They gave you that through the interbreeding we discussed earlier, through families that blended their cold-adapted genetics with modern human populations. You survive winter partly because they spent 200,000 years learning how. Let yourself feel protected by this ancient knowledge as you drift deeper. They mastered the most challenging environment humans had yet encountered. They didn't migrate to easier climates. They stayed, they adapted, they specialized. They became so perfectly suited to Ice Age survival that their genetics still help their descendants cope with cold 40,000 years later. That's not primitive. That's mastery so complete it transcends time. As sleep approaches, your body is engaging thermoregulation systems refined across 300,000 years, automatically adjusting blood flow to maintain core temperature, managing metabolic rate for efficient energy use, fine-tuning 1,000 subtle processes that keep you in the narrow temperature range where human consciousness functions optimally. You don't think about this. You don't have to. Neanderthal evolution automated it. Made it unconscious. Made survival effortless enough that you can redirect consciousness toward rest, dreams, recovery. They survived Ice Age winter nights just like this one, though colder, darker, more dangerous. And they did it not by making life brutal, but by making it comfortable. By mastering their environment so completely that evenings became peaceful, restful, safe. By creating shelter and warmth and security sophisticated enough that they could relax completely, lower their guard, sleep deeply, and wake to continue thriving. You inherit that mastery. That's why your bedroom feels safe despite being a tiny enclosed space. Why darkness doesn't terrify you. Why you can sleep despite cold outside. Why your body knows exactly how to maintain temperature, exactly when to rest, exactly how to survive night. Neanderthals taught you this across 200,000 years of bitter winters. Taught your body, your genes, your instincts. Museums can't hide this inheritance because you feel it every time temperature drops and your body responds perfectly, automatically, using ancient wisdom encoded so deeply that consciousness never needs to intervene. Rest now in climate mastery, 200,000 years refined. Your shelter holds. Your temperature is perfect. Your body knows what to do. Ancient winters protected you then. Ancient wisdom protects you now. Sleep in Ice Age security. Dream of survival so complete it became effortless. Wake knowing you carry the genetics of the greatest climate survivors humanity ever produced. But tonight just feel warm, feel safe, feel held by 200,000 years of adaptation. Close your eyes, and let Neanderthal thermoregulation carry you into dreams, maintaining perfect temperature, perfect comfort, perfect security. They've got you. They always have. Every tool you use traces back to their hands. And in that lineage, museums found evidence they couldn't reconcile with primitive narratives. Because Neanderthal technology wasn't simple, wasn't crude, wasn't the random luck of breaking rocks until something sharp emerged. It was planned, systematic, sophisticated. It was science applied 200,000 years before science had a name. Let yourself drift to a scene museums never recreate accurately. A Neanderthal craftsperson sits in good light near the cave entrance, working stone with absolute precision. This is the Levallois technique, and watching it reveals everything about Neanderthal consciousness that institutions tried to hide. They're not randomly striking rocks. They're executing a multi-step plan that exists completely in imagination before the first blow is struck. Watch closely. First, they select the stone. Not just any stone, but specific types with particular fracture properties: flint, chert, obsidian when available. They understand materials science, understand how molecular structure affects breaking patterns, understand that the wrong stone wastes time and produces inferior tools. They examine each piece, testing it, reading qualities invisible to untrained eyes. This is expertise, judgment, pattern recognition developed over decades of practice. Now they prepare the core, not the final tool, but the form from which the final tool will be struck. They're imagining the end result and working backward, shaping the stone into a configuration that will yield the desired product in one perfect strike. This is reverse engineering, abstract planning, the ability to hold multiple futures in mind simultaneously and choose the path that leads to the best outcome. Your ancestors did this 200,000 years ago, while museums insisted they operated on instinct and accident. Feel yourself relaxing deeper as you recognize this pattern in your own thinking. When you plan your day, working backward from desired outcomes, when you prepare your sleeping space, imagining the comfort you want and arranging everything to achieve it. When you think ahead, envision results, plan steps, execute complex sequences. This isn't modern cognition. This is Neanderthal cognition. The exact same capacity for abstract planning that made Levallois technique possible makes your life possible. The strike comes. Perfect angle, perfect force, perfect point of impact. A flake detaches that's already the right shape for a knife or scraper or spear point.
One strike.
But that one strike required dozens of preparatory blows, each one planned, each one executing part of a vision that existed entirely in mental space before touching physical reality. This is symbolic thought, the ability to manipulate ideas independent of immediate perception, the capacity that museums claimed separated humans from animals, from primitives, from Neanderthals, except Neanderthals had it.
Mastered it.
Used it constantly. They made hafted spears. Let that technical achievement settle into your peaceful mind. A hafted spear isn't a sharp stick. It's an engineered tool requiring multiple components created separately, then joined permanently. The stone point shaped with precision. The wooden shaft selected for straightness and strength, treated to prevent splitting. The binding materials prepared from sinew or plant fiber.
And the adhesive.
The adhesive reveals everything. Museums buried the adhesive evidence for as long as possible, because Neanderthals made birch tar, made it 200,000 years ago, made it through a complex process requiring sustained heat at specific temperatures. They had to understand that heating birch bark in low oxygen environments produces sticky tar, had to understand temperature control, had to understand that this process takes hours and requires constant attention, had to understand chemistry. They were chemists 200,000 years ago, creating adhesives that held under stress, that lasted through hunting, that bonded materials permanently, without kilns, without thermometers, without any of the technology modern chemists consider essential. They did it through pure empirical observation, experimentation, accumulated knowledge, teaching. They did it because they could imagine a better spear, could envision the adhesive that would make it possible, could work backward from that vision to create the substance they needed. Feel your hands relaxing now, understanding they carry the memory of ancient hands.
Hands that worked stone with precision.
That created fire deliberately, that manufactured adhesives from raw materials, that built tools, shelters, clothing, everything needed for survival in the harshest environments Earth offered. Your hands aren't more capable than theirs. They're the same hands. Same bone structure, same neural control, same fine motor capacity. You use them for different tools, but the hands themselves? Neanderthal hands, resting now after a day of use, preparing for recovery through sleep. They planned tool production months in advance. Evidence shows stone cores carried for hundreds of kilometers, implying understanding of future needs in specific locations. Caches of materials stored for later use. Specific sites returned to repeatedly because they offered optimal tool-making conditions. This is logistics, resource management, long-term thinking that considers future versions of yourself in different circumstances with different needs. You do this when you grocery shop, plan vacations, prepare for seasons ahead. Neanderthals did it 200,000 years before agriculture required it. Museums called Neanderthal tools Middle Paleolithic, positioning them as intermediate between primitive and advanced. But many Neanderthal tools match or exceed the sophistication of early modern human technology. Some show innovations modern humans didn't develop independently for thousands of years. They weren't following a primitive path that we later improved upon. They were master craftspeople developing parallel solutions to shared survival challenges.
Different doesn't mean lesser.
Never did? Let your breathing slow to the rhythm of ancient crafting sessions. The patience required to execute Levallois technique, the focus needed to produce birch tar, the attention demanded by hafting spears that would determine hunting success or failure. Your ancestors could sustain concentration for hours, working toward goals that existed only in imagination, trusting their skill to make vision real. You inherited that capacity. Use it every day. Feel it now as you consciously relax, executing a plan for rest that you created in mental space and are now bringing into physical reality. They taught their young through apprenticeship models that wouldn't look unfamiliar in modern craft guilds. Children watching adults for years before attempting complex techniques themselves. Gradual skill progression from simple to complex. Correction. Encouragement. Shared satisfaction in mastery achieved. This is cultural transmission. Education. The passing of accumulated knowledge across generations that allows each new generation to start where the previous one ended rather than beginning from nothing. This is civilization. 200,000 years ago, in Ice Age Europe. In Neanderthal communities, museums insisted operated on instinct. Your problem-solving abilities right now, as your mind wanders towards sleep and encounters challenges to comfort, engaging unconscious troubleshooting. Neanderthal inheritance. Your hands remember? Their hands remember their hands across thousands of generations. The neural pathways for tool use, for planning, for executing complex multi-step processes. All of it refined across 300,000 years of Neanderthal existence. All of it functional in you tonight. Feel yourself held by ancient expertise as sleep approaches. They were technological masters, problem solvers of breathtaking sophistication, innovators who created solutions. Modern science struggled to reverse engineer when finally forced to acknowledge Neanderthal capabilities. Every tool you use today, every complex object you interacted with, traces its lineage back to Neanderthal hands, working stone with impossible precision, back to minds that could envision the future and create it deliberately, back to ancestors museums tried to hide from you because acknowledging them meant acknowledging that consciousness, intelligence, and technological sophistication were already fully developed 200,000 years ago. Rest now in ancient innovation. Let your tool-using hands relax completely, trusting they'll remember tomorrow everything they learned today, just as Neanderthal hands remembered across centuries of perfecting techniques. Sleep is when skill consolidates, when muscle memory forms, when practice becomes mastery. They knew this. Use sleep deliberately for skill development. You do the same tonight. Close your eyes and let 300,000 years of technological wisdom process in your resting consciousness. Dream of hands working stone. Wake with ancient expertise still flowing. But tonight, just rest. Tools set aside, work completed. Ancient technology supporting modern sleep. Perfect continuity across impossible time. They wondered about existence just as you wonder now. And in that wondering, museums found the most dangerous evidence of all. Because abstract thought, symbolic consciousness, existential questioning, these were supposed to be the unique markers of modern human superiority, the things that separated us from everything else, the proof of our special place in creation. Except Neanderthals did all of it.
100,000 years before writing.
200,000 years before philosophy had a name. Let yourself drift now to a clear night 60,000 years ago. A Neanderthal sits alone on a rocky outcrop, gazing up at stars scattered across darkness like sparks from an eternal fire. The rest of the group sleeps in the cave below. But this one individual sits awake looking up, and something profound is happening in that ancient mind. They're wondering, not about practical matters, not about tomorrow's hunt or the weather or immediate survival. They're wondering about existence itself. What are those lights in the sky? Do they mean something? Is there purpose to this life, to the endless cycle of birth and death, to the love that binds families and the grief that tears them apart? These questions have no survival value. They don't help with hunting or gathering or avoiding predators. They're purely abstract,
Purely conscious.
purely human in the deepest sense of what that word means. And your Neanderthal ancestor is asking them 60,000 years ago, feeling the same existential ache you feel when you can't sleep and your mind spirals into the big questions. Feel your own mind settling now, recognizing this ancient pattern. Those thoughts that come in darkness, when the day's distractions fade and consciousness confronts itself.
Who am I? What does this mean? Why do I feel this way?
Where do I fit? These aren't modern anxieties. They're ancient questions, Neanderthal questions. The questions that prove consciousness was already complete, already struggling with the same mysteries that puzzle you tonight. They created symbols, deliberate, intentional, meaningful marks that represented something beyond themselves. Cave walls across Europe bear engravings that can only be Neanderthal. Geometric patterns, parallel lines, cross-hatchings, abstract designs that carry no practical information about hunting or resources or danger. They exist purely to mean, to represent, to point towards something in the mental world and make it visible in the physical. This is the birth of art, of mathematics,
Of language.
of everything that makes human consciousness recognizable. The ability to create something that stands for something else, to manipulate symbols independent of their reference, to think about thinking, to create meaning where only matter existed before. Museums fought this evidence desperately because it demolished every argument for Neanderthal inferiority. You can't have symbolic thought without full consciousness, can't create abstract representations without theory of mind, can't make meaningful marks without understanding that other minds will interpret them as meaningful. Let your breathing deepen now, matching the slow rhythm of ancient contemplation. That Neanderthal on the outcrop, staring at stars, creating meaning from patterns in light, creating stories probably, creating explanations for why things are the way they are, creating mythology, cosmology, philosophy, all of it flowing from the desperate human need to understand, the need that keeps you awake sometimes, that makes you seek answers, that drives you to content like this, hoping to find pieces of truth that will make existence make sense. They buried their dead with symbolic objects, not just practical tools, but items that carried meaning. Flower arrangements in specific patterns, Ochre, always ochre, placed with intention around bodies. Personal items buried with individuals, suggesting belief that identity continues, that the person will somehow need these things, that death isn't ending, but transition. This is religious thought, spiritual consciousness, the capacity to imagine existence beyond immediate perception, to believe in something you can't prove, to hope that meaning transcends mortality. Your ancestors had faith 50,000 years ago, not faith in specific deities necessarily, though perhaps that too, but faith in meaning itself, faith that life isn't random suffering followed by nothing, faith that consciousness matters, that love matters, that the bonds we create echo in some dimension we can't access with physical senses. They believed this deeply enough to spend precious time and energy creating ritual burials. Museums called it superstition, but it was hope,
Human hope.
the hope you feel when you imagine you matter, when you trust tomorrow will come, when you believe in things you can't prove but need to be true. Feel yourself held by this ancient hope as you drift deeper towards sleep. They believed in morning when darkness surrounded them, believed in meaning when existence seemed harsh, believed in continuation when everything visible ended.
That faith, that hope, that desperate, beautiful human conviction that there's more than we can see.
It's 300,000 years old.
It's Neanderthal.
It's yours. They made music, probably. We can't prove this directly, but everything else we know about them makes it almost certain. They had symbolic thought. They had emotional depth. They had social bonding rituals. They had leisure time to create art. Music is universal among conscious humans. Every culture, every time period, every branch of humanity creates rhythm, melody, harmony. Why would Neanderthals be different? They weren't. Imagine that individual on the outcrop beginning to hum, matching sounds to feelings, creating auditory symbols for emotional states, making music not because it helps survival but because consciousness demands expression, because feelings that can't be spoken can sometimes be sung, because harmony creates connection between isolated minds, because rhythm synchronizes nervous systems and makes group bonding possible, because music, like symbolic thought, proves that we're more than survival machines. We're meaning makers, beauty creators, consciousness reaching beyond itself. Let your mind wander now with ancient wandering.
No destination. No purpose.
Just consciousness experiencing itself, wondering, questioning, creating meaning from the raw material of existence. This is what Neanderthals did in quiet moments. What you do in moments like this. The same capacity, the same need, the same profound, inexplicable human drive to understand, to mean, to matter. They taught abstract concepts to their children.
Had to if they were teaching stone napping.
Because you can't learn Levallois technique through simple imitation. You need to understand angles, force vectors, material properties, planning sequences. You need abstract conceptual frameworks. You need language that can discuss things not physically present, events not yet happened, relationships between invisible principles. They taught this successfully, consistently, across thousands of generations. Your capacity for abstract learning. Neanderthal inheritance. Museums suppressed the symbolic evidence most viciously because it attacked the last refuge of human uniqueness. Physical differences could be minimized. Tool use could be shared.
Even language could be grudgingly acknowledged.
But symbolic consciousness, abstract thought, existential questioning, spiritual belief, artistic expression, philosophical wondering, these were supposed to be ours alone, the things that made us special. That justified our dominance, our superiority, our right to exist while they didn't. But they had all of it. Every marker of consciousness museums claimed was uniquely human, Neanderthals possessed. The cave engravings prove it. The burial rituals prove it. The symbolic objects prove it. The very fact that we could interbreed proves it, because you can't create families with someone who doesn't share your basic consciousness.
Can't fall in love with someone who doesn't have theory of mind.
Can't raise children together if abstract communication isn't possible. Feel the weight of this truth settling around you like a blanket. They were us. Completely, undeniably, obviously us. Different appearance, different adaptations, different evolutionary path, but the same consciousness, the same capacity for wonder, the same need to create meaning, the same existential ache that makes you lie awake sometimes questioning everything. The same hope that makes you believe tomorrow matters. The same faith that makes you trust in things you can't prove. The same humanity that museums spent over a century trying to deny them. That individual on the outcrop 60,000 years ago eventually returned to the cave, lay down near the fire, closed their eyes without answers to the big questions, but somehow satisfied anyway. Because wondering is enough sometimes. Because consciousness experiencing itself is its own reward. Because the questions matter more than answers. Because being human means living with mystery and finding that bearable, even beautiful. You're that individual tonight, wondering, questioning, seeking meaning in darkness.
Using the same consciousness, asking the same questions, finding the same peace in the wondering itself.
Abstract thought connects you across 60,000 years. Symbolic consciousness makes you family. Existential wondering makes you identical twins born millennia apart. Museums tried to separate you from them, but your mind in this moment proves they failed. You think like them,
Wonder like them,
question like them,
hope like them. Because consciousness is consciousness.
humanity is humanity. And they were always completely, undeniably human. Rest now in ancient wondering. Let the questions dissolve as sleep approaches. Consciousness doesn't need answers to find peace. It just needs to know it's not alone in the asking. And you're not alone. 300,000 years of Neanderthals wondered before you, questioned before you, stared at stars and felt the ache of existential mystery before you. You continue their wondering.
Honor their consciousness.
Carry forward their hope that meaning exists even when we can't prove it. Close your eyes now, conscious being, symbolic thinker, meaning maker, wanderer. Join that ancient individual returning to the cave. Lay down near fires that burned 60,000 years ago and burn in your heating system now. Let consciousness rest from its wandering. Let questions fade into dreams. Let symbolic thought dissolve into unconscious processing. Sleep in the knowledge that you are them, they are you. And consciousness was never modern. It was always ancient.
Always complete, always human, always yours.
They understood sound in ways museums never wanted you to discover. Because acoustic knowledge implies neuroscience, implies understanding of how sensory input affects consciousness, implies intentional manipulation of environment to create specific psychological states, implies sophistication that shatters every primitive narrative. And the evidence sits in caves across Europe, waiting in the physics of stone and space for anyone willing to listen to what Neanderthals knew 50,000 years ago. Let yourself drift now to a specific cave in France, not random cave selection for shelter. This is deliberate choice based on properties invisible to eyes, but unmistakable to ears. A Neanderthal elder leads a small group deep into the cave system, past the entrance where they sleep, past the area where they work tools, into chambers most never visit. The elder stops in one specific location, turns, and creates sound.
A vocalization.
And the cave responds. The sound amplifies, resonates, fills the space with harmonics that didn't exist in the original voice. The cave is an instrument, a natural amplifier designed by geology and chosen by Neanderthals who understood exactly what they'd found.
This is an accident.
Modern acoustic analysis of caves with Neanderthal occupation and decoration reveals consistent patterns. They chose spaces with specific resonant frequencies. They painted and carved in locations where sound behaves in particular ways. They understood that certain chambers would magnify voice, create echo effects, produce harmonics that affect human nervous systems. Feel your own body responding to sound right now. The voice narrating this content, the tone and pacing deliberately calibrated for relaxation. That's not accidental either. It's acoustic psychology. Understanding that certain frequencies calm while others agitate, that certain rhythms entrain brain waves into relaxation states. That voice itself, independent of meaning, affects consciousness through pure physics. Neanderthals knew this, used it, created spaces where sound would do what they wanted it to do. They held rituals in these acoustic chambers. We can't know the specifics, but we know the locations. Decorated caves correlate with acoustic properties. Art appears, most frequently, where sound resonates most powerfully. This isn't coincidence. This is intentional sacred space creation. Choosing locations where voices will sound otherworldly, where chanting will create harmonics that feel transcendent, where rhythm will echo and build and synchronize group consciousness into shared experience. Let your breathing slow now, imagining ancient ceremonies in resonant caves, group voices combining, harmonics building, sound waves literally vibrating through bodies, synchronizing hearts and breath and neural activity. This is consciousness engineering, using physics to create psychological states, using architecture, even natural architecture, to manipulate perception, emotion, social bonding. Your ancestors understood 50,000 years ago what modern neuroscience is just beginning to quantify. Sound changes consciousness. They may have used specific chants or vocalizations to induce altered states. Rhythmic, repetitive sounds in resonant spaces create measurable changes in brain activity. Theta wave increases, alpha wave synchronization, the neural signatures of trance, meditation, religious experience. Modern humans use drums, gongs, singing bowls, chanting to achieve these states. Neanderthals had the same neurology, the same capacity for sound-induced altered consciousness, and spaces specifically selected for acoustic properties that would facilitate it. Feel yourself drifting deeper as you recognize this pattern. You're using sound right now to alter your consciousness. This narration, this voice, this rhythm and tone, it's acoustic technology for sleep induction. The same principle Neanderthals used in their resonant caves. Different purpose perhaps, but identical mechanism. Sound affecting brain through physics. Frequency and rhythm in training neural activity. Voice as tool for consciousness manipulation. Ancient knowledge, modern application. Your brain responding exactly as Neanderthal brains responded. Museums ignored the acoustic evidence for decades because accepting it meant acknowledging that Neanderthals understood neuroscience. Not academically, not theoretically, but practically. They knew that certain sounds in certain spaces created specific psychological effects. They couldn't explain it with equations, but they could use it. Could select spaces, create rituals, generate experiences that bonded groups, induced healing trances, created shared spiritual states. Could engineer consciousness using only voice and stone and understanding of how physics affects psychology. Your response to music, to rhythm, to voice, to the specific acoustic environment you've created for sleep, all of this traces back to Neanderthal neurology. Brains that evolved in spaces where sound mattered for communication, where acoustic properties of shelter locations affected group cohesion, where the ability to use voice effectively was survival critical. Your ears aren't just receiving sound, they're processing it through 300,000 years of evolution that optimized human acoustic perception for survival, bonding, and consciousness manipulation. They probably sang to their children in these resonant spaces, used the acoustic properties to create overwhelming sensory experiences that imprinted memories, taught lessons, created emotional bonds, strengthened by the physical sensation of sound vibrating through small bodies. Your earliest memories might include song, voice, rhythm, because human neurology is designed to respond to and remember acoustic experiences. Because Neanderthal parents used sound to bond with, teach, and comfort their children in ways that became hardwired into human development. Let yourself feel held by ancient sound now. Cave acoustics creating safety through reverberation. Group voices creating belonging through harmony. Rhythm creating calm through entrainment. All of it physics applied intuitively by people who couldn't write equations but could feel in their bodies what modern science measures with instruments. They knew the caves prove it. The art placement proves it. The correlation between decoration and acoustic properties proves it beyond any doubt. Museums couldn't suppress the acoustic evidence once researchers started measuring it. The correlations were too consistent, the patterns too clear. Neanderthals chose and used spaces based on sound properties. Did it systematically. Did it over thousands of years across vast geographic ranges. This is cultural knowledge, accumulated understanding, transmitted expertise, the kind of sophisticated environmental manipulation that requires consciousness, communication, teaching, and belief that intentional space creation matters for human experience. Rest now in acoustic wisdom 50,000 years refined. Your quiet space, your sound choices, your voice seeking at bedtime, all of it echoing Neanderthal understanding. Sound heals.
Sound bonds.
Sound alters consciousness. Sound creates sacred experience in resonant spaces.
They knew, used it.
Passed it forward through every human who feels moved by music, calmed by voice, connected by harmony, altered by rhythm. You're experiencing Neanderthal acoustic technology right now.
Let it work.
Let sound carry you deeper. Let voice become vibration, become altered state, become sleep. Ancient caves resonate in your resting consciousness. Echo, harmonize, entrain, dream in perfect acoustics designed 50,000 years ago and functioning still in the physics of sound meeting consciousness. Close your eyes and listen. The caves are still singing. They ate with wisdom that took 300,000 years to develop. And in that wisdom, museums found evidence so undeniable they couldn't suppress it entirely, only minimize it. Because dental analysis doesn't lie. Chemical isotope studies don't have agendas. The physical evidence of what Neanderthals ate, how they prepared it, why they chose it, reveals minds that understood nutrition with sophistication that would impress modern dietitians. Let yourself drift now to an evening meal 45,000 years ago. Watch what they're eating. This isn't the primitive meat-only diet museums implied for decades. A wooden bowl holds cooked grains. Barley, identified from dental calculus analysis. Not raw seeds scattered on ground and grabbed desperately. Processed grains, cleaned, ground, cooked into something approaching porridge. This is agriculture knowledge without agriculture. Understanding that grains become digestible, nutritious, energy-dense when processed and heated. Understanding that took observation, experimentation, accumulated knowledge passed across generations. Another bowl holds tubers. Wild potatoes roasted in coals to perfect tenderness. Root vegetables that require knowledge to identify, skill to harvest, understanding to prepare. They're not desperate scavengers eating whatever they stumble across. They're informed foragers selecting specific foods for specific nutritional properties. The tubers provide carbohydrates for energy. The grains provide sustained calories. Both chosen deliberately from dozens of available plant options because these particular plants offer optimal nutrition. Feel your own body relaxing now, recognizing this ancient food wisdom in your own choices. That instinct to eat certain foods for energy, others for comfort, others before sleep because they help you rest. That's not modern nutrition science.
That's Neanderthal wisdom.
Accumulated understanding of how different foods affect the body, mood, consciousness. You know to avoid heavy meals before bed without understanding digestion biology. They knew the same thing the same way. Experience, observation, attention to how body responds to food choices. Seafood appears in their diet systematically, not opportunistically, but as planned nutrition. Coastal Neanderthal sites show fish bones, shellfish remains, evidence of systematic marine resource exploitation. They understood that seafood provides nutrients unavailable in terrestrial foods, understood that coastal areas offer dietary diversity that inland locations don't, chose settlement locations partly based on food access, made seasonal migrations to harvest specific resources at optimal times. This is resource management, nutritional planning, dietary strategies sophisticated enough to require abstract thinking about future needs and how to meet them. They ate bone marrow deliberately, cracked specific bones in specific ways to access the fatty, nutrient-dense marrow inside. This is an instinct. Most carnivores don't bother with marrow. It requires tool use, knowledge of which bones contain the best marrow, technique for accessing it without destroying the resource. Neanderthals were marrow specialists, knew it provided concentrated calories essential for Ice Age survival, knew how to extract it efficiently, taught techniques to their young, created cultural knowledge around optimal marrow extraction that persisted for thousands of generations. Let your breathing deepen as you feel ancient satiation, that sense of being well fed, nourished, ready for rest. They felt this too, sitting around fires after evening meals planned for optimal nutrition. Bodies fueled correctly for night's rest and tomorrow's demands. Not by accident, not by luck, but by accumulated dietary wisdom that understood food as more than immediate hunger satisfaction.
Food as medicine, as energy management,
as conscious choice affecting function hours or days later. They cooked with sophistication that proves planning and understanding. Different foods prepared different ways for different purposes. Some roasted directly in coals, others wrapped in leaves and steamed, others boiled in containers made watertight with careful construction. They controlled heat levels, cooking times, preparation methods to achieve specific results. This is cooking, real cooking. The kind that requires understanding how heat affects protein, starch, fat, how timing matters, how method changes outcome. Museums portrayed Neanderthals charring meat over open flames in primitive desperation, but dental evidence tells different stories. Plant starches cooked at specific temperatures, grains processed through multiple steps, foods combined in ways that suggest seasoning, flavoring, conscious taste preference. They had cuisine,
had food culture,
had preferences and techniques and traditional preparations passed through families. They didn't just eat, they cooked. And cooking requires the same abstract thinking, planning, and accumulated knowledge as toolmaking or cave painting. Feel yourself held by ancient nourishment now. Every instinct you have about food, about what your body needs, about how to prepare meals that satisfy and sustain, Neanderthal inheritance. Your taste preferences partly shaped by genes they passed forward. Your digestive capabilities optimized by 300,000 years of their dietary choices. Your body's understanding of what it needs to rest well tonight partly comes from their experience with how different foods affect sleep quality. They stored food systematically, smoked meat for preservation, dried plants for winter use, cached resources in specific locations for later retrieval.
This is future thinking.
Understanding that abundance today can be transformed into security tomorrow, that preservation techniques extend seasonal resources across scarce periods, that planning months ahead improves survival rates. Your pantry, your meal planning, your food storage, you're doing exactly what Neanderthals did, using the same cognitive capacity for temporal thinking and resource management. They may have understood medicinal properties of foods. The line between food and medicine is blurry in traditional knowledge systems. That plant that helps digestion,
that root that eases pain,
that herb that promotes sleep. Modern herbalism recognizes hundreds of plants with medicinal properties. Neanderthals lived immersed in plant communities for 300,000 years. Of course, they understood which plants healed, which harmed, which nourished, which altered consciousness. They had to.
Survival demanded it.
And the knowledge accumulated, refined, transmitted across millennia. Let your mind drift towards sleep now. Bodies satisfied, nourished by modern food prepared with ancient wisdom. The understanding that certain meals promote rest, that food timing matters for sleep quality, that what you eat hours before bed affects how you feel now. This isn't new science. This is ancient knowledge rediscovered. Neanderthals understood food-sleep connections because they paid attention across thousands of generations to what worked, what didn't, what helped, what harmed. Museums minimized Neanderthal dietary sophistication because it revealed planning, knowledge, culture, accumulated wisdom, and conscious choice. Everything that primitive narratives couldn't accommodate. But teeth don't lie. Dental calculus preserves microscopic evidence of exactly what was eaten. Isotope analysis reveals diet composition. Archaeological remains show food preparation areas, cooking features, storage locations. The evidence is overwhelming. They were sophisticated eaters, knowledgeable foragers,
Skilled cooks.
nutritional strategists planning meals for optimal function, just like you, because you inherited their food intelligence, their nutritional wisdom, their understanding of eating as conscious choice, affecting everything from energy to mood to sleep quality. Rest now in ancient satiation, body-fed, nourishment absorbed, energy available for tomorrow because tonight's meal was chosen wisely. They did this 45,000 years ago.
You do this tonight.
The wisdom continues. The understanding persists. The knowledge flows through genes and culture and instinct, from their fires to your kitchen to this moment of perfect nourishment-enabled rest.
Close your eyes, well-fed descendant of well-fed ancestors.
Sleep in the satisfaction of wise eating. Dream of ancient meals around ancient fires. Wake knowing that every good food choice you make honors their accumulated wisdom. But tonight, just feel nourished. Feel satisfied. Feel ready for rest that only comes when the body is properly fueled. They taught you this. 300,000 years of learning what works. Sleep now in their dietary wisdom. Perfectly nourished. Perfectly ready. Perfectly held by ancient understanding of food as foundation for everything else, rest. They loved their children with an intensity that made museums profoundly uncomfortable. Because love implies consciousness, implies emotional depth, implies the capacity for attachment, sacrifice, long-term investment in others with no immediate return, implies everything that separates conscious beings from survival machines. And the evidence of Neanderthal parenting is so overwhelming, so undeniable, so obviously emotional that suppressing it required decades of deliberate academic misdirection. Let yourself drift now to a scene of absolute tenderness 50,000 years ago. A Neanderthal mother with an infant. The child is perhaps 6 months old, completely dependent, requiring constant care.
Watch how she holds the baby.
Not randomly, not carelessly, but with the specific supporting grip that protects fragile neck muscles. She's learned this, been taught this, understands infant vulnerability in ways that require conscious knowledge of child development stages. This is parenting expertise, accumulated wisdom about early childhood care that takes generations to refine. The infant has a large head, disproportionately large relative to body size, just like modern human infants. This is evidence of something extraordinary. Neanderthal babies were born with brains that weren't finished growing. Born helpless, dependent, requiring years of intensive care to reach independence. This is ultricial development, the strategy that requires extended parenting but allows for larger adult brain size and greater learning capacity. It's the evolutionary trade-off that makes human consciousness possible. And Neanderthals made the same trade-off, committing to years of intensive childcare in exchange for enhanced intelligence. Feel your own need for comfort now as you rest. That desire to feel safe, protected, cared for. It's infant memory. The first years of life when you were completely dependent, when survival required others to sacrifice for you constantly. Neanderthal infants felt this same vulnerability. Neanderthal parents responded with the same fierce protective love. The capacity for that love, the neurology that makes it possible, is 300,000 years old minimum. Ancient, proven, transmitted through every generation to you tonight, still capable of feeling and giving that primal care. The mother is nursing. Dental analysis from Neanderthal children reveals nursing patterns extending 3 to 4 years. Not weeks or months, years. This is metabolic commitment on an extraordinary scale. Producing milk requires hundreds of extra calories daily. Maintaining lactation through years of nursing means prioritizing the child's nutrition over the mother's other needs.
This is sacrifice.
This is love measured in thousands of hours of physical discomfort, sleep deprivation, metabolic stress. And they did it consistently, universally, because consciousness demands we protect our children, even at significant personal cost. Watch the mother respond to the infant's sounds. Not all cries mean the same thing, and she knows this. Hunger cry gets nursing. Pain cry gets examination and treatment. Fear cry gets comfort and reassurance. She's reading subtle variations in vocalization, facial expression, body language, responding appropriately to different needs. This is theory of mind, understanding that the infant has internal states she can't directly access, but can infer from behavior. Understanding that requires abstract thinking, empathy, emotional intelligence. She's not responding to programming. She's reading her baby's mind and responding to what she perceives there. Let yourself feel deeply relaxed now, recognizing this ancient attunement in your own desires. You want to be understood. Want others to perceive your needs even when you can't articulate them. Want the kind of attention Neanderthal mothers gave their infants, complete, devoted, intuitive attention that makes you feel absolutely known. That desire is primal. It's the first relationship pattern your nervous system experienced. It's what Neanderthal parenting created in every child, establishing templates for intimacy and care that persist across life. The father is nearby, involved. Neanderthal child rearing wasn't just maternal. Evidence suggests male investment in children, either as fathers or as uncles, or as community members, taking responsibility for group offspring. They carried children who couldn't walk long distances, provided food for nursing mothers whose caloric needs precluded full foraging participation, protected, taught, played with children. This is pair bonding, alloparenting, social child rearing systems that require communication, cooperation, shared values about children's worth. They taught children patiently across years. Stone tool making takes a decade to master. Starting around age 5, continuing through adolescence, children learned by watching, attempting, receiving correction, trying again. Evidence shows practice pieces near living areas where children worked under adult supervision. Mistakes tolerated, progress encouraged, mastery expected eventually but not immediately. This is education, scaffolded learning, patient mentoring across years. The kind of teaching that requires understanding developmental stages, appreciating that learning is process, not event, believing that investment in children's skills will pay off years later. Feel your breathing slow to the rhythm of patient teaching. That Neanderthal elder showing a child how to hold the hammerstone, how to strike at precise angles, how to read the stone for the hidden shape within, correcting gently, encouraging constantly, demonstrating again and again without frustration. This is love expressed as time investment, as patience, as belief that this child will master complex skills if given sufficient support. You learned this way. Modern education claims to have invented patient developmental teaching, but Neanderthals were doing it 200,000 years ago. They played with their children. Evidence suggests carved objects with no practical function, possibly toys. Time spent in activities that don't contribute to immediate survival but contribute to bonding, skill development, emotional regulation. Play is how young mammals practice adult skills in low-stakes contexts. Neanderthal children played hunting games probably, practiced social skills through pretend scenarios,
Learned tool use through playful experimentation.
and adults facilitated this, took time from survival activities to support play because they understood its developmental importance. Museums suppressed evidence of Neanderthal childhood for decades because it humanized them too completely, made them sympathetic, made their displacement or extinction feel tragic rather than inevitable.
Because children are innocent.
Children are vulnerable. Children inspire protective instincts that cross every boundary. Admitting Neanderthals invested years in raising children who required intensive care meant admitting they loved as deeply as modern humans love. And that truth made comfortable narratives impossible. Let yourself feel held by ancient parenting now. by 300,000 years of mothers and fathers and community members sacrificing for children, going hungry so children could eat, staying awake so children could sleep safely, teaching patiently so children could master skills, playing enthusiastically so children could develop optimally, loving fiercely so children could become adults capable of repeating the cycle. You're the product of that unbroken chain of parental love. Every Neanderthal parent who chose their child's welfare over their own comfort contributed to your existence tonight. They grieved child deaths deeply. Evidence of children buried with extraordinary care. Infant graves with flowers, with treasured objects, with evidence of profound emotional investment. Parents who spent time and energy honoring small bodies that never contributed economically to the group. This is grief.
Real grief.
The devastating emotional experience of losing someone whose potential will never be realized. Neanderthals felt this 50,000 years ago, felt it deeply enough to create elaborate burials. Deeply enough that evidence remains in the archaeological record despite overwhelming preservation biases against finding such delicate remains. Feel yourself completely relaxed now, held by ancient parental love that continues in every adult who feels protective of children, who sacrifices for the next generation, who believes that children's well-being matters more than personal convenience. That's Neanderthal parenting, ancient, powerful, transmitted through genes and culture and the deep neurological patterns established in your own first years when you were the helpless infant receiving intensive care. You know how to love this way because you were loved this way? And the pattern traces back through your modern human parents, through their parents, back and back until you reach Neanderthal mothers nursing for 4 years, fathers carrying tired children, communities protecting all offspring as precious treasures. Rest now in ancient parental care. Let yourself feel as protected as that infant in her mother's arms 50,000 years ago, as valued as that child receiving patient teaching, as loved as every Neanderthal child who was nursed and carried and taught and played with and grieved if lost. You continue their lineage of loved children. You are proof that Neanderthal parenting worked, that their intensive investment paid off across 50,000 years, that their love was strong enough to create you. Close your eyes now, ancient child, forever loved across impossible time. Sleep in parental protection 300,000 years old. Dream of being held, safe, valued, completely loved. Wake knowing you carry forward the legacy of best parenting practices humanity ever developed. But tonight, just be the child again, held, safe, infinitely precious, rest. They knew their land with an intimacy that made every stone, every plant, every seasonal change as familiar as your own bedroom is to you now. And in that knowing, museums discovered evidence of intelligence that couldn't be explained by instinct or accident. Because intimate environmental knowledge requires memory, planning, abstract spatial understanding, teaching across generations, and conscious attention to patterns across years and decades. It requires consciousness fully engaged with place, making the land an extension of mind. Let yourself drift now to a specific territory. Not vast hunting ranges or nomadic wandering, but the opposite. A Neanderthal group's home range was remarkably small,
Perhaps 20 kilometers across.
this tiny area used intensively, known completely. Every cave shelter mapped in memory. Every water source catalogued by season. Every plant food location recorded by reliability. Every animal trail understood by time of day and year.
This isn't primitive.
This is sophisticated resource management. Knowing a small area so thoroughly that no resource goes unexploited, no opportunity missed, no danger unrecognized. Walk through their territory with them now in your imagination. Spring, the hillside where first greens emerge as snow melts. That exact hillside, reached by memory, visited at optimal harvest time because they understand plant phenology without botanical terminology. Summer, the valley where specific medicinal plants grow. Not plants in general, but specific species in specific locations, remembered across years, protected through deliberate non-overharvesting. Autumn, the stand of nut trees that produces abundantly every other year. Pattern recognition requiring multi-year memory and understanding of tree reproduction cycles. Winter, the south-facing cave that catches maximum sunlight, chosen for winter occupation based on microclimatic understanding. Feel your own territorial security now as you rest in familiar space. Your bedroom isn't random location. You chose it, optimized it. Understand its qualities, light patterns, temperature zones, sound insulation, comfort factors. This is territorial knowledge. The same capacity for spatial understanding, environmental optimization, and place attachment that Neanderthals expressed across their small territories. You make your sleeping space safe through intimate knowledge of its properties. They did exactly the same thing 50,000 years ago across entire landscapes. They didn't wander randomly hoping to stumble on resources. They had mental maps, cognitive cartography of their territory detailed enough to navigate in darkness, in storm, in any condition because the map lived in memory, not on paper. This is extraordinary spatial intelligence. The hippocampus development required for this kind of environmental encoding, the working memory capacity to hold hundreds of locations, seasonal variations, resource abundances across years. This is brain power, dedicated neural architecture for place knowledge. And Neanderthals' brains were larger than modern human brains on average. That extra capacity partly served spatial intelligence, territorial memory, environmental mastery. Let your breathing deepen now as you feel your own place attachment. Why certain locations feel safe while others create unease. Why familiar spaces promote relaxation while unfamiliar spaces maintain alertness. Your nervous system is designed for territorial security. Neanderthal evolution in small territories made place familiarity essential for survival. Made intimate environmental knowledge the difference between thriving and struggling. You inherit neurological systems optimized for knowing places deeply and feeling safe in familiar territory. That's why your bedroom comforts you. Why routine routes feel easier than new paths. Why home means safety at primal levels. They marked their territories, probably. Evidence suggests Neanderthals returned to the same locations repeatedly across generations. Same caves occupied for thousands of years. Same tool-making sites used continuously across centuries. This is place investment. Creating improvements that benefit future users. Maintaining locations across time. Understanding that the territory itself is resource requiring care. Modern humans mark territory with fences, signs, ownership claims. Neanderthals mark territory through use, through memory, through teaching children the landscape, through stories that embedded territorial knowledge in cultural transmission. Each season brought different gifts from the same land. They understood this deeply. Spring meant fresh greens in specific locations. Summer meant certain animals migrating through particular valleys at predictable times. Autumn meant focused nut and berry harvesting before winter. Winter meant relying on stored resources and hunting patterns adapted to snow. This is phenological knowledge. Understanding how time affects space. How the same location offers different resources at different times. How survival requires matching your activities to landscape rhythms across the year. Feel yourself relaxing completely now, trusting your space the way Neanderthals trusted their territories. That trust isn't naive. It's earned through knowledge, through attention, through intimate familiarity built across repeated experience. Your bedroom is predictable because you know it. Their territory was predictable because they knew it. Same psychological mechanism, same neurological basis. Same comfort in knowing exactly what to expect from familiar space. Trust enables rest. Knowledge enables trust. Intimacy enables knowledge. They knew this. Designed their lives around it. Rarely ventured beyond their known territory because mastery of small area provided everything needed. They taught territorial knowledge systematically to children, not through formal lessons but through constant immersion. Children accompanied foraging trips, hunting expeditions, seasonal moves, learned landmarks, resources, dangers through direct experience guided by adult knowledge. By adolescence, Neanderthal children knew their territory as intimately as their parents did, could navigate independently, could find resources without guidance, could contribute to group survival through territorial mastery. This is education embedded in daily life, cultural transmission through participation. Knowledge is inheritance more valuable than tools or food, because knowledge enables obtaining everything else. Museums minimized Neanderthal territorial wisdom because it revealed planning, memory, teaching, cultural continuity, and relationship with landscape that seemed too sophisticated for supposed primitives. But the evidence is undeniable. Small territories used intensively across millennia, repeated site use proving memory across generations, resource exploitation patterns proving seasonal planning, tool caches proving forward thinking about future needs in specific locations. They weren't wandering randomly, they were territorial specialists,
Masters of their chosen landscapes.
knowing every detail of small areas rather than vague knowledge of large ranges. Let your mind drift now through ancient territories, forest valleys where Neanderthals foraged,
River crossings where they hunted migrating animals.
cave clusters where they sheltered across seasons, hillsides where specific plants grew. Each location rich with memory, thick with meaning, alive with stories of past events, family history, territorial wisdom transmitted across centuries. This is the landscape as extended mind,
As memory palace,
as cognitive architecture where every location stores information, every landmark triggers knowledge, every path connects resources in mental maps of extraordinary detail. They were sustainable, had to be. If your entire life happens in 20-kilometer radius, you can't deplete resources without destroying your own future. Neanderthals managed their territories for long-term viability, didn't overhunt key species, didn't overharvest plant resources, moved between locations within their range to allow recovery, understood that territory is living system requiring care. Modern conservation biology calls this ecosystem management. Neanderthals did it instinctively through combination of necessity and accumulated wisdom about what works across generations. Feel yourself held by ancient territorial wisdom now, by 300,000 years of Neanderthals knowing their land intimately, managing it sustainably, teaching it to their children, marking it with memory and meaning. You carry their capacity for place attachment, their neurological architecture for spatial memory, their emotional bonding with familiar territory.
That's why home matters so deeply.
Why displacement feels traumatic. Why familiar places provide comfort that no unfamiliar space can match. Your bedroom isn't just physical location, it's extension of self. Known space, territory, same as Neanderthal caves and valleys and hillsides. Different scale, identical psychological function. Rest now in territorial security. Your space, your safety, your intimately known environment. They created this feeling 50,000 years ago in their small territories. You create it tonight in your bedroom. The wisdom continues. The knowledge persists. The understanding that survival requires both knowing where you are and feeling that where you are knows you back, welcomes you, holds you safe. Close your eyes now, secure in territory. Dream of ancient valleys where every plant had a name, every cave a history, every path a purpose. Wake knowing you carry forward territorial wisdom, 300,000 years refined. But tonight, just rest in place. Known place, safe place, your place. Ancient and modern, territory secured, sleep protected. Dream in familiar space where nothing surprises because everything is known. Perfect security through perfect knowledge.
Ancient wisdom. Modern application.
Eternal comfort in territory mastered. Rest. They didn't disappear.
Let that truth settle into your peaceful consciousness like a revelation that changes everything.
Museums use the word extinction. History textbooks describe Neanderthals as dead-end, failed species, evolutionary losers who couldn't compete with superior modern humans. But the genetic evidence tells a completely different story.
A story of transformation, not termination, of merging, not murder, of love, not loss.
They're not gone. There you let yourself drift to a specific time and place. Around 40,000 years ago, in what is now Europe and Western Asia, two populations of humans were living in overlapping territories. Neanderthals, who'd been there for 200,000 years. Modern humans recently arrived from Africa. Museums want you to imagine conflict, competition, winner and loser. But watch what actually happened.
Watch carefully, because this is where their story becomes your story.
Where their genes become your genes. Where extinction becomes transformation. A Neanderthal woman and a modern human man meet.
Maybe at a neutral gathering place.
Maybe through gradual group contact. Maybe through curiosity, attraction, the same forces that draw humans together across every boundary we create. They don't see separate species. They see another person. Different appearance, yes. Different culture, certainly. But unmistakably human. Unmistakably conscious. Unmistakably someone you could talk with, laugh with, create family with. And they make that choice. To bridge difference, to create something new, to merge rather than conflict. Feel your own DNA stirring now as you relax deeper. Those Neanderthal genes activating in your immune system, your skin, your brain. Proof that 40,000 years ago your ancestors chose love, chose integration, chose to become one people instead of remaining separate. Every human of European or Asian descent carries 2 to 4% Neanderthal DNA. Not contamination.
Not accident.
Intentional family creation. Intentional merging. Intentional transformation of two populations into one. They had children together. Those children were fertile, healthy, successful enough to have children of their own, who had children of their own across hundreds of generations, leading directly to you. This is the opposite of extinction. This is genetic immortality. Every Neanderthal who created a mixed family achieved the biological goal of all evolution, continuation. Their genes persist, active, functional, contributing to your survival right now. They won the evolutionary game completely. They're still here, living in you, expressing themselves in your body every moment. Museums resisted this interpretation desperately. Preferred narratives of replacement, of modern human superiority, of Neanderthals dying out while we flourished. But genetics doesn't care about comfortable narratives. DNA tells truth that museums tried to hide. Neanderthals didn't lose. They transformed. They saw modern humans arriving, and instead of fighting to extinction, they chose integration, chose to blend, chose family over tribalism, chose the future together rather than separate survival. Let your breathing slow to the rhythm of ancient decision-making. Those final generations of distinct Neanderthal populations choosing to merge with modern humans, choosing hybrid children who carried both lineages forward, choosing transformation over isolation. This is consciousness making choice about species-level future. Understanding that survival might require flexibility, integration, willingness to become something new rather than clinging to genetic purity. They chose survival through transformation, chose continuation through merging. And that choice lives in every cell of your body tonight. Some Neanderthals probably resisted integration, stayed separate, maintained distinct communities, and those lineages did end. Those groups did face extinction. But others chose differently, chose hybrid futures, chose mixing, and their choice proved successful beyond imagination.
Because you exist.
Because billions of people carry Neanderthal DNA, because the ones who chose integration achieved immortality, while the ones who chose separation achieved extinction. The lesson is clear. Consciousness survives through connection, dies through isolation. They learned this 40,000 years ago. The truth echoes through genetic evidence, undeniable and complete. Feel yourself held now by ancient wisdom about survival through connection, by the understanding that barriers between groups are choices, not inevitabilities. That difference can be bridged through willingness to see common humanity, that the future belongs to those who merge rather than those who separate. Neanderthals knew this, chose this, sacrificed distinct identity to achieve genetic continuation. chose to become part of something larger rather than remaining separate and dying out. They live every time you fight off infection using immune genes they contributed. Live every time you adapt to cold using their genetic adaptations.
Live every time you sleep following circadian rhythms influenced by their DNA. Live every time you create art, love your children, care for the vulnerable.
Any of the behaviors that made them human and make you human, because humanity is continuous across supposed species boundaries. They didn't die, they transformed. Extinction Museum's described was actually assimilation, absorption, integration, transformation. Let your mind rest now in this truth. You are the victory of Neanderthal choice to integrate. You are proof that love transcends tribal boundaries. You are living evidence that collaboration beats competition for evolutionary success. Every breath you take, Neanderthal genes support it. Every immune response, their contribution strengthens it. Every moment of your existence validates their choice 40,000 years ago to merge rather than remain separate.
You are their immortality,
Their continuation, their genetic eternity. Museums wanted extinction narrative because it justified modern human dominance, made us special, made us winners. But the genetic truth is more beautiful than supremacy stories. The truth is cooperation, integration, love strong enough to create hybrid families despite cultural difference, despite physical difference, despite every reason tribalism offers to maintain separation. Your Neanderthal ancestors looked at modern humans and chose family, chose children who would carry both lineages, chose genetic immortality through transformation. And 40,000 years later, you breathe because they made that choice. Rest now in ancient continuation. You are not the ending of Neanderthal's story. You are its continuation.
not separate species anymore.
One people,
One family.
one humanity that includes every human who ever lived, every consciousness that ever wandered under stars, every parent who ever loved a child enough to sacrifice. Neanderthals included, always, forever, because extinction was illusion, transformation was truth, and you are living, breathing, resting proof that love conquers tribal boundaries. That connection defeats separation, that the ones who chose integration 40,000 years ago achieved immortality, while museums that taught extinction taught lies. Close your eyes now. Hybrid human mixed lineage, living Neanderthal continuation. Sleep in the knowledge that you are their victory, their choice, their eternal persistence in world that tried to forget them. Dream with their genes active. Wake tomorrow, continuing their story. But tonight, just feel their presence. In your DNA, in your breath. In your consciousness, that's partly theirs, because consciousness was never separate, never other, never different enough to justify the extinction narrative museums taught for over a century. They live, they persist, they continue.
In you, tonight, always, rest in their immortality.
Sleep in their transformation. Dream in their genetic persistence. You are the answer to extinction. You are proof that love transcends everything, even death, even 40,000 years, even museum lies about disappearance.
They're here.
They never left. Close your eyes and feel them.
Ancient family.
Forever present, eternally yours. Now you understand why they hid this. As you drift deeper into rest, intellectual satisfaction washing through your peaceful consciousness, the pieces fall into place. Museums didn't suppress Neanderthal evidence by accident, didn't minimize their accomplishments through oversight. This was systematic, intentional, driven by motivations that had nothing to do with science and everything to do with narratives that served specific purposes. And understanding those motivations completes your journey into truth tonight. Let yourself see now behind the museum walls, into the academic departments, the funding committees, the exhibition planning meetings. The early 20th century, when museums were establishing themselves as authorities on human origins. Evolution was new theory, controversial, requiring careful presentation to gain public acceptance. And evolution needed a story, a narrative that made sense. That felt satisfying. That justified existing social hierarchies and colonial enterprises. They needed primitives, needed ancestors who were clearly inferior, needed evolutionary ladder with modern European humans at the top. Neanderthals were perfect for this narrative. Dead, so they couldn't object. Different enough in appearance to seem other. Old enough to seem primitive. And conveniently located in Europe, where they could be incorporated into European origin stories without complicating colonial narratives about non-European peoples. Museums decided before examining evidence that Neanderthals would be the primitive step we evolved from, the brutes we transcended. The proof that evolution produces progress, improvement, advancement toward the superior form represented by modern European humanity. Feel your body relaxing deeper now as you recognize this pattern. The truth shaped to serve a gender, evidence interpreted to support pre-existing narrative, science corrupted by social needs for comfortable stories. Museums weren't engaged in neutral fact-finding. They were constructing mythology, creating origin stories that justified present social arrangements, making evolution serve colonialism, racism, hierarchy, all the comfortable beliefs that made European dominance feel natural rather than political. Then the evidence started contradicting the narrative. Neanderthal burials with flowers,
Large brain capacity.
sophisticated tools, birch tar production, symbolic art, interbreeding. Every discovery made them more human, more intelligent, more sophisticated, more impossible to categorize as primitive stepping stones. And museums faced choice. Revise the narrative or suppress the evidence. Accept that Neanderthals were equals or maintain comfortable lies. Admit error or double down on deception. You can see which choice they made by looking at museum displays even today.
Still showing hunched ape men.
Still describing primitive culture. Still maintaining narratives that genetic evidence demolished decades ago. Let your breathing slow now, feeling the satisfaction of understanding. Museums had careers invested in old narratives,
Had textbooks published. Had exhibitions designed.
had academic reputations built on Neanderthal primitiveness. Admitting error would require dismantling institutional structures built across decades, would require acknowledging that prestigious researchers were wrong, that confident assertions were false, that the entire evolutionary story museums taught was fundamentally flawed. Easier to suppress evidence, easier to minimize discoveries, easier to maintain lies than rebuild foundations. The conspiracy wasn't coordinated. Wasn't explicit meetings where researchers agreed to hide truth. It was systemic bias. Interpretive frameworks that filtered evidence through pre-existing assumptions. Career incentives that rewarded maintaining orthodoxy and punished challenging established narratives. Funding structures that supported research confirming dominant theories and starved research questioning them. Museums didn't need explicit conspiracy. They had institutional inertia, cultural investment in specific stories, social pressure to maintain comfortable narratives about human origins and modern human superiority. Feel yourself drifting now, the mystery solved, the pattern clear. Every weird interpretation of Neanderthal evidence makes sense when you understand museums needed primitives, needed ancestors to look down on, needed evolutionary story justifying present hierarchies. So burial flowers became accidental pollen contamination. Large brains became inefficient primitive structures. Sophisticated tools became lucky accidents. Symbolic art became modern human contamination of sites. Interbreeding became rare aberration rather than common practice. Every inconvenient truth explained away because accepting it meant destroying the comfortable narrative that made museums feel good about modern humanity. But genetic evidence couldn't be explained away. DNA doesn't care about narrative needs, doesn't respond to interpretive frameworks, just tells truth. Neanderthals interbred with modern humans extensively. Neanderthals contributed genes essential for modern human survival. Neanderthals weren't primitives or failures or evolutionary dead ends. They were people,
Fully human.
differently adapted but equally conscious. And genetic truth made museum lies impossible to maintain for anyone paying attention to evidence rather than institutional narrative. Let your mind rest now in this complete understanding. Museums weren't evil, just invested in stories that served social functions. Just trying to make evolution acceptable to public by giving it satisfying narrative arc. Just responding to incentives that rewarded maintaining orthodoxy and punished uncomfortable truths. They weren't villains, just humans doing what humans do when truth threatens comfortable beliefs. But you don't have to maintain their comfortable beliefs. You can accept truth regardless of whether it serves social functions or justifies hierarchies or makes anyone feel superior. Neanderthals were your equals, your family, your ancestors in direct genetic lineage. Museums hid this because accepting it meant accepting that human consciousness is ancient, distributed across multiple populations, not unique to modern humans. Not justification for dominance narratives, not proof of progress. Accepting it meant seeing humans as one family with variation rather than hierarchy, with winners and losers. And that truth threatened too many comfortable lies to be easily accommodated. But tonight, you accommodated it. Tonight you learned truth museums hid. Tonight you reclaimed ancestors they tried to deny you. Tonight you completed the journey from museum lies to genetic truth. And the satisfaction of that completion prepares you perfectly for rest. Intellectual curiosity fulfilled. Questions answered. Pattern understood.
Mystery solved.
You can rest now, truth seeker. The hidden knowledge is yours. The forbidden understanding is possessed.
Ancient ancestors are reclaimed.
Museum conspiracies understood, forgiven, transcended. Truth prevails, always, eventually. And tonight, truth carries you to sleep, satisfied, complete, holding knowledge they tried to hide. Rest now in hard-won understanding. Dream of truth defeating lies. Wake knowing museums may hide evidence, but DNA tells truth. No institution can suppress forever.
Close your eyes.
Rest satisfied. Sleep complete.
Ancient truth finally permanently yours.
Use their wisdom when you wake. This isn't just history or bedtime story or interesting information to file away and forget. This is practical guidance for tomorrow.
For your life.
For the modern world that's forgotten ancient wisdom but desperately needs to remember it. As you drift towards sleep now, let yourself imagine incorporating Neanderthal practices into your daily existence.
Making their wisdom functional. Living their legacy intentionally. Tomorrow morning when you wake, spend 3 minutes with nature before screens.
Before phone checking, email reading, news consuming, step outside if possible. Or simply look through window at sky, trees, birds, weather. Connect with natural world the way Neanderthals connected constantly, completely, without choice, because their survival depended on attention to natural patterns. You have choice now, and that makes the practice even more important. Choose to notice nature. Choose to observe seasonal changes, weather patterns, animal behavior, plant cycles. This is Neanderthal attention.
Ancient awareness.
The consciousness that made your ancestors environmental masters. Feel yourself relaxing deeper as you imagine this practice. The simplicity of it, the power of it. 3 minutes with nature.
Rebuilding connection that modern life severs.
Activating ancient neural pathways designed for environmental awareness. Calming nervous system. Through contact with natural patterns, your neurology evolved to find soothing. This isn't New Age mysticism. This is evolutionary psychology. Your brain expects nature contact, craves it, functions better with it. Neanderthals gave you this need through 300,000 years of complete nature immersion.
Honor it tomorrow.
3 minutes outside, aware, use your hands to create something each day. Anything, doesn't matter what. Cook a meal from scratch. Draw something. Fix something broken. Garden, build, craft. Engage fine motor skills in purposeful creation. Neanderthals use their hands constantly for complex tool work, food preparation, shelter improvement, art creation. Your hands have the same neural control, the same capacity for precision, the same need for purposeful use. Modern life reduces hands to typing and screen tapping. This is deprivation. Your hands need real work, need to shape physical reality, need to create tangible results from skilled manipulation. Tomorrow, make something with your hands. Feel ancient satisfaction in physical creation. Let your breathing slow now, imagining skilled hands working. The satisfaction that comes from creating something that didn't exist before, something useful or beautiful or both. This is Neanderthal contentment, the pleasure that comes from applying skill to materials and producing results. Your ancestors felt this constantly. You can feel it tomorrow. Choose to. Dedicate time to hand-based creation. Watch how your mood improves, how your sense of agency strengthens, how satisfaction emerges from using body the way it was designed to be used.
Ancient practice, modern application.
Immediate benefit, build your community intentionally. Neanderthals lived in tight-knit groups where everyone knew everyone, where isolation was impossible, where belonging was automatic. Modern life creates isolation despite population density, creates loneliness despite constant connection, reverses the social conditions your neurology expects. So you must build community intentionally. Reach out to one person tomorrow, not digital message but real contact. Phone call, visit, face-to-face conversation. Invest in relationships the way Neanderthals invested automatically, through constant physical proximity and cooperation.
Make isolation the exception, connection the default.
Build tribe.
Even if tribe is small.
Even if modern.
Even if imperfect.
Build it. Feel yourself held now by imagined community, by the safety of mattering to others and having others matter to you. This is Neanderthal social structure made modern. Adapted to current conditions but honoring ancient needs. Your nervous system requires community. Requires people who know you, care about you, depend on you, include you. Tomorrow, strengthen those connections.
Feed them, prioritize them.
Make them real through action. One person.
One contact.
Begin rebuilding tribal belonging one relationship at a time.
Ancient wisdom.
Modern practice. Essential survival, eat with awareness. Not just consuming food, but paying attention to it. Tasting it, appreciating it, understanding where it came from, how it was prepared, what it does for your body. Neanderthals couldn't eat unconsciously. Every meal represented hours of work, finding, processing, preparing food. They paid attention. Savored. Understood nutrition deeply through direct connection between food choices and how bodies felt. Tomorrow, eat one meal with full attention.
No screens, no distraction.
Just food and awareness. Notice flavors, textures, satisfaction, gratitude.
Ancient practice, modern mindfulness.
Same thing. Let your mind drift now towards sleep, planning tomorrow's integration.
Nature contact, hand creation.
Community building. Conscious eating. 4 practices, simple, achievable, powerful. These aren't burdens. They're gifts from ancestors who mastered survival through 300,000 years of practice. They're offering you the wisdom that worked, the patterns that created thriving, the practices that honored human neurology and psychological needs. You can refuse these gifts, can keep living modern disconnection.
Or you can accept them.
Can integrate ancient wisdom into modern life. Can become slightly more Neanderthal in the best possible ways. Tomorrow night, return here. Return to this content, this information, these practices. Make this your nightly ritual, your bedtime routine, your sleep preparation ceremony. Let learning about Neanderthals become regular practice, not one-time experience. Let their wisdom sink deeper with each night's rest. Let sleep consolidate the learning, integrate the practices, make the ancient patterns automatic in your modern life. This is how knowledge becomes wisdom. Through repetition, through practice, through returning again and again until new patterns become natural. Feel yourself completely relaxed now, ready for sleep, planning tomorrow's ancient practices.
You're not just learning history tonight. You're reclaiming inheritance.
You're taking back wisdom museums tried to hide. You're honoring ancestors who survived everything evolution threw at them and passed their genius forward to you. Tomorrow, you activate that genius. Tomorrow, you live Neanderthal wisdom in modern context. Tomorrow, you prove that ancient practices still work because human neurology hasn't changed enough to stop responding to patterns that made your ancestors thrive. Choose one practice for tomorrow. Just one if 4 seems overwhelming. Choose the one that calls to you.
Nature contact, hand creation,
Community building? Conscious eating? Choose one. Commit to it. Do it. Experience ancient wisdom made modern. And tomorrow night, come back here.
learn more. Add another practice.
Build gradually toward integrated life that honors both modern advantages and ancient needs. This is path forward. This is reclaiming Neanderthal legacy. This is making their survival matter by using their wisdom. Tomorrow begins now in choice made before sleep. Choose. Commit. Rest. Knowing tomorrow brings ancient practice made new. Close your eyes now, planning tomorrow's integration. Dream of nature contact, skilled hands, strong community, mindful eating.
Wake with purpose. Ancient purpose.
Neanderthal purpose. The purpose that made your ancestors thrive when survival was hard and rewards came only from wise choices and practical action. You carry their wisdom. Tomorrow you activate it. Tonight you rest. Dream of tomorrow. Wake ready. But now just sleep. Ancient practices wait for morning. Tonight holds only rest, planning, gentle anticipation of life lived slightly more like Neanderthals lived. Wisely, skillfully, connected, present, aware. Sleep now. Tomorrow comes.
Ancient wisdom wakes with you.
Ancient symbols protected them and can protect you tonight. As you drift into the deepest relaxation yet, let yourself understand that symbols aren't just intellectual constructs. They're psychological tools, consciousness technologies that Neanderthals developed through thousands of generations of observing what made humans feel safe, strong, capable of rest despite danger. Tonight, you'll create your own protective symbol using ancient wisdom to design modern comfort. Let yourself travel now to a Neanderthal cave entrance 45,000 years ago.
Evening approaching.
The group preparing to settle for night.
Watch what they do before sleeping.
They mark the cave entrance with ochre. Not random marks, but specific symbols, repeated patterns they've used for generations. These marks say, "This is ours.
This is protected.
This is safe space." The symbols don't have magical power, but they have psychological power. They tell every group member that this place has been claimed, prepared, secured. They allow nervous systems to relax, to trust the shelter, to believe safety is real enough to permit vulnerable sleep. Feel your own need for symbolic protection now. You lock doors, set alarms, arrange your space in ways that signal safety to your unconscious. This is exactly what Neanderthals did with their symbols. Same psychological mechanism. Same need to mark territory as secure. Same comfort from visible signs that protection exists. Your ancestors understood 45,000 years ago that consciousness needs symbols, needs visible markers of invisible safety, needs tangible signs that abstract concepts like protection are real, present, functional. They wore personal talismans, eagle talons strung together, shells from distant beaches, objects that carried meaning, history, power. Not magical thinking, but psychological technology. The talisman reminds you of your strength when you touch it, reminds you of your community, your history, your identity as someone powerful enough to protect and be protected. You have equivalent objects, lucky items,
Meaningful jewelry.
photos of loved ones, objects that aren't valuable monetarily but carry immense psychological weight.
This is Neanderthal wisdom.
Using physical objects to anchor abstract psychological states. Let your breathing deepen now as you design your own protective symbol. Close your eyes in imagination and visualize something that represents safety to you. Maybe geometric pattern like those Neanderthals carved in caves. Maybe animal that represents strength.
Maybe abstract form that feels powerful.
Maybe memory of place where you felt completely safe. Whatever emerges, let it form clearly in your mind. This is your symbol, your personal protection mark. Ancient practice made uniquely yours tonight. See your symbol clearly now? If it's visual, observe its colors, shapes, lines. If it's more felt than seen, notice its qualities: weight, temperature, texture, energy. If it's memory, inhabit it fully: sounds, smells, emotions of that safe place. This symbol is becoming real through attention, through conscious creation. Through the same process Neanderthals used when they decided which marks would protect their caves.
You're not just imagining.
You're creating psychological technology that your nervous system will recognize as meaningful. They place protective objects around sleeping areas,
Specific stones.
meaningful tools, items that mark the sleeping space as protected territory. Museums call this superstition. Psychology calls it environmental cueing. Creating physical environment that signals to unconscious mind that safety protocols are active. Your bedroom objects serve similar function if you let them. That photo on your nightstand, that specific blanket,
That arrangement of pillows.
these are protective symbols if you consciously recognize them as such. If you tell yourself, these objects mark this space as safe,
As protected.
as territory secured, feel yourself completely relaxed now, surrounded by protective symbols, both visualized and physical. Your personal symbol holding clear in mind's eye. Your bedroom objects recognized as protection markers, ancient and modern, merging in psychological technology that makes rest possible. Neanderthals needed this because Ice Age nights were dangerous. You need this because modern minds carry ancient threat detection systems that sometimes activate even when safe. Symbols tell those systems protection exists. Rest is permitted. Sleep is safe. They renewed their protective rituals regularly, not once but repeatedly, returning to mark cave entrances, reinforcing protective sides, maintaining psychological technology through practice. You do the same by returning to this content nightly, by visualizing your protective symbol regularly, by consciously recognizing your bedroom as protected territory. This isn't superstition. This is nervous system management. This is using consciousness deliberately to create psychological states that serve you.
Ancient wisdom. Modern application.
Same effectiveness across 45,000 years. Ochre handprints on cave walls weren't just art, they were identity marks. Personal symbols saying, I was here.
I am real. I matter.
I have power to mark this space, to claim this territory, to assert my existence. You can create equivalent tonight. Not physical handprint, but imaginative one. Place your invisible hand on invisible cave wall and declare, this space is mine. This territory is protected. This rest is deserved.
I mark this place with my presence and claim its safety. Ancient gesture.
Symbolic power.
Immediate psychological effect. Let your protective symbols surround you now like invisible shield.
Like cave entrance marked with ochre saying, protected territory. Like eagle talon necklace saying, I am strong. Like sleeping space arranged with meaningful objects saying, safety is real here. Your symbol can be anything that communicates protection to your unconscious. Neanderthals knew symbols work not through magic, but through meaning. Through conscious assignment of psychological significance to physical or imagined forms. Through using the human capacity for symbol making to create tools that serve psychological needs. Rest now inside your protective symbol. Feel it surrounding you.
Above, below, all sides.
Not physically real, but psychologically functional. Your nervous system responds to symbols the way Neanderthal nervous systems responded. With relaxation, with trust, with willingness to be vulnerable enough for deep rest. This is ancient wisdom working in you tonight.
Symbol as protection. Imagination as tool.
Consciousness deliberately creating conditions that make unconsciousness safe. Close your eyes now, protected by ancient symbol-making wisdom. Sleep inside invisible marks that say, this human is safe. This space is secured. This rest is protected by symbols 45,000 years old and new tonight.
Dream in protection.
Wake in safety. But now just rest. Symbolically, anciently, perfectly protected sleep. You are blessed by 300,000 years of survival. As you settle now into final, complete, perfect rest, let this blessing wash over you like ancient hands on your forehead, like ochre marks on cave walls, like flowers on 50,000-year-old graves, like every gesture of love, protection, and wisdom your ancestors practiced through countless generations to make this moment possible. You are the success they dreamed of, the future they couldn't imagine but worked to create, the continuation they hoped for but never saw. You are blessed, infinitely, anciently, eternally. Let yourself travel one final time to that ancient evening 50,000 years ago. The full community gathered as darkness settles over Ice Age landscape. Children tucked safely in furs, hunters returned, foragers finished, tools stored, food prepared, fire banked for long night ahead. Everything in order, everything prepared, everything as it should be. The elder stands, raises hands toward darkening sky, and speaks blessing over the assembled family. You are part of that family. Always were, always will be. Listen now to blessing meant for them but reaching across time to you. Tonight, this moment, exactly where you are, may the wisdom of 300,000 winters keep you warm. Feel this truth now. Every adaptation they developed, every strategy they perfected, every technique they refined across millennia of Ice Age survival, all of it flows through your genes, your instincts, your unconscious wisdom about how to stay warm, how to rest safely, how to trust that morning comes. You are kept warm by their wisdom, tonight, always. Their blessing lives in every comfortable breath you take. May the courage of Ice Age survivors flow through your dreams. They faced what you cannot imagine, and not only survived, but thrived. Created beauty in harshness, found joy in difficulty, built communities in isolation, raised children through impossible conditions, loved deeply despite constant danger. That courage isn't gone, it's in you, in your DNA, in your capacity to face modern challenges that feel overwhelming. You come from the most courageous humans who ever lived. Their bravery flows through your dreams tonight, preparing you for tomorrow's challenges with ancient strength. May the love they showed each other surround you now. The Neanderthal mother nursing her child for 4 years. The father carrying tired children across difficult terrain. The community keeping Shanidar 1 alive through years of disability. The partners who chose each other across species boundaries to create your mixed lineage. The parents who buried children with flowers and grief so profound it survives in archaeological record. That love surrounds you, holds you, protects you through this night as it protected them through 300,000 years of Ice Age darkness. You are loved by ancient love, eternal love, love that transcends death, time, even extinction itself. Feel your body completely relaxed now, every muscle soft, every breath easy, every thought dissolving into peace. The blessing continues, the ancient elders' hands raised toward stars that shine on you tonight as they shone 50,000 years ago. Same stars, same blessing, same human consciousness, recognizing itself across impossible time and declaring, you are precious. You matter. You are protected by everything that came before. May their hidden genius awaken your own. Every discovery you've made tonight, their intelligence, their art, their medicine, their love, proves genius isn't modern. Consciousness isn't new. Human brilliance was fully present 300,000 years ago, only hidden by museums that needed comfortable lies. But you know now, you've reclaimed that genius as your inheritance. Tomorrow, when you solve problems, create beauty, show compassion, think abstractly, you'll be activating Neanderthal genius that never died, never diminished, only waited in your DNA for you to recognize and honor it. Your genius is ancient, proven, unstoppable. May you sleep as they slept, deeply, safely, knowing dawn comes. They trusted sleep despite danger, trusted darkness despite uncertainty, trusted rest despite vulnerability. That trust was earned through 300,000 years of successful nights, through countless dawns that followed countless sleeps, through unbroken chain of ancestors waking refreshed, surviving another day, passing the pattern forward. You inherit that trust. That's why you can close your eyes now without fear. Why your body knows how to rest. Why sleep feels safe despite being unconscious and vulnerable. They taught you this trust, encoded it in your neurology, made it automatic. Sleep is safe because they slept safely for 300,000 years. Trust them. Close your eyes. The fire dims in that ancient cave, embers glowing softly. Children breathing deeply in innocent sleep. Adults settling into comfortable positions perfected through years of practice. The space is warm, protected, held by stone walls chosen for perfect shelter qualities. Everyone's safe. Everyone home, everyone together in the dark, trusting that group protection will last through night into morning. You are part of that group. Feel yourself there. One of the sleepers, protected by ancient walls, ancient fire, ancient community. Safe then, safe now, safe always in the eternal present where consciousness experiences itself. Stars emerge fully as darkness completes, the same stars you could see through your window if you looked. Orion, Pleiades. The endless sparkling field that fascinated them as it fascinates you. They wondered about those stars, created stories about them, used them for navigation, saw in them the same beauty and mystery you see. 50,000 years separate your stargazing from theirs, but the experience is identical. Wonder, awe, the slight, existential vertigo of realizing how small we are in space and time, and the comfort of knowing that smallness connects us to everyone who ever looked up and wondered. You're never alone. Ancient stargazers watch with you, across time, across death, across extinction that wasn't extinction, but transformation. May the museum tries to bury them, but you brought them home. This is perhaps the greatest blessing. The secret they tried to hide, you discovered. The ancestors they tried to deny you, you reclaimed. The wisdom they suppressed, you liberated. Tonight, you performed act of justice, 100 years delayed. You looked at evidence, saw truth, rejected comfortable lies. You brought Neanderthals home, back into human family where they always belonged, back into your consciousness where they can finally rest, recognized, honored, loved. This is sacred work you did tonight, truth-seeking, ancestor reclaiming, justice restoring. Be proud of this work. Sleep in satisfaction of completing something important. The cave is completely dark now except for ember glow, breathing synchronized into group rhythm, unconscious coordination of sleeping humans sharing space. Your breathing matches theirs across 50,000 years. Slow, deep, peaceful, trusting. Your consciousness begins dissolving into their consciousness. Individual identity softening into group identity.
Modern and ancient merging into eternal human experience of rest. You are them, they are you. Consciousness is consciousness, sleep is sleep. Human is human across every boundary time tries to create. May you sleep as they slept, deeply, safely, knowing dawn comes.
The second repetition of this blessing because it's the most important, the permission to rest, the trust that vulnerability is safe, the faith that morning follows night, as certainly as it has followed every night since consciousness emerged. They slept, they woke, through 300,000 years, through ice ages and warm periods, through abundance and scarcity, through joy and grief. They slept and woke, unbroken chain of rest and rising that continues in you tonight. You will sleep. You will wake. The pattern holds. The blessing ensures it. Ancient trust carried forward by consciousness, too deep for doubt. Safe. The word echoes through ancient cave and modern room. Safe. Whispered by Neanderthal parents to frightened children. Safe. Confirmed by community members to each other. Safe. The fundamental truth that made sleep possible through 300,000 years of danger. You are safe. Not perfectly, not invulnerably, but safely enough to rest. Safely enough to lower guard. Safely enough to trust that unconsciousness won't be permanent, that morning will come, that life continues through sleep into waking. Safe. Blessed. Protected by ancient patterns, ancient wisdom, ancient trust earned through endless nights of successful rest. Blessed. You are blessed by Ice Age survival, by Neanderthal genius, by parental love that nursed children for years, by communities that cared for disabled, by partners who created mixed families, by artists who made beauty in harshness, by the ones who buried with flowers and grief, by the ones who chose integration over separation, by the ones whose genes flow in you right now, keeping you alive, making you human, connecting you across time to family, so ancient that museums tried to hide them, but genes proved their presence undeniably. Blessed by ancestors, blessed by survival, blessed by transformation that made you possible, blessed. Continuing. You are continuation.
Not ending, not separate.
Not different species or different consciousness. Continuation of everything they were. Every skill they mastered lives in your potential.
Every love they felt lives in your capacity.
Every question they asked lives in your wondering. Every hope they held lives in your dreams. You continue them. Make their survival meaningful. Prove that their choices 50,000 years ago to merge rather than separate were successful beyond imagination. Billions of people carrying their DNA. Billions of opportunities for their genes to express ancient genius. You are opportunity realized tonight. Continuation made conscious. Blessing fulfilled through your existence. The ancient elders' hands lower now. Blessing complete. The group settles into final sleep positions. Furs adjusted. Bodies relaxed. Minds releasing into dream. The elder lies down among them, joining collective rest. No longer giving blessing but receiving it along with everyone else. Part of group, not separate from it. Blessed along with all humans by the simple gift of consciousness, of community, of safety earned through cooperation. The elder sleeps. The community sleeps. The ancient world sleeps.
And you sleep with them. In them, as them dream now.
Let consciousness dissolve completely. Let individual identity fade into collective human experience of rest. Let 300,000 years of sleeping humans hold you in their eternal slumber. Neanderthals dreaming ancient dreams. Modern humans dreaming modern dreams. All dreams the same underneath. Processing experience, integrating learning, maintaining psychological health, preparing for tomorrow. You dream with your ancestors, in their patterns, using their neurology, continuing their nightly practice of consciousness, releasing into unconsciousness, trusting the process, finding rest, safe, blessed, continuing. The three truths that make sleep possible. You are safe enough to be vulnerable. You are blessed by 300,000 years of survival wisdom. You are continuation of consciousness that never died, never diminished, only waited to be recognized and honored. These truths hold you now as you drift fully into sleep, As waking thought gives way to dream, as conscious narrative dissolves into unconscious processing, as you join the sleepers, ancient and modern, Neanderthal and human, all the same consciousness expressing through time. Tomorrow, you carry them forward. Tomorrow you activate their wisdom. Tomorrow you prove that their survival matters by using their gifts, honoring their memory, living their legacy. Tomorrow you are conscious continuation of ancient blessing. But tonight you are just sleep, just rest, just consciousness releasing into the darkness that held them, holds you, holds all humans across all time. Tonight you are blessed sleeper in eternal human family of rest. The cave is silent now. The embers have faded to darkness. The breathing is so quiet it's almost imperceptible. Deep sleep, healing sleep. The sleep that made survival possible by restoring body and mind for tomorrow's challenges.
They sleep.
You sleep.
Same darkness, same peace, same trust.
Same blessing carrying consciousness safely through vulnerability into morning. Sleep now.
Dream now, rest now. Ancient child of ancient parents. Modern human with ancient soul.
Blessed continuation of 300,000 years of survival.
Safe in the cave. Safe in your bed.
Safe in eternal present where all humans rest together. Protected by ancient blessings spoken 50,000 years ago and reaching you tonight. Tomorrow comes, but tonight,
Only sleep, only rest, only dreams.
only ancient blessing working through darkness into dawn. Close your eyes completely now. Release absolutely. Trust perfectly. You are held. You are safe. You are blessed. By ice and time. By courage and love. By genius and wisdom. By ancestors who sleep with you tonight in consciousness too deep for words, but too real for doubt. They're here. They're holding you. They're blessing you into sleep so deep that morning will feel like resurrection. So complete that waking will feel like birth. So trusting that rest comes without effort, because ancient patterns carry you safely through darkness into light. Sleep now, precious inheritor of Neanderthal secrets. Sleep now, blessed continuation of ancient survival. Sleep now, safe child of Ice Age courage. Sleep now, loved descendant of profound love. Sleep now, genius carrying ancient genius. Sleep now, protected by symbols 50,000 years old. Sleep now, held by community across time. Sleep now, trusting patterns proven through 300,000 years. Sleep now.
Dream now, rest now.
The museum tried to bury them, but you brought them home. And home is here, in your consciousness, in your DNA, in your rest tonight.
They're home.
You're home.
Everyone's safe.
Everyone blessed. Everyone sleeping in ancient peace that time cannot diminish. Sleep, dream, rest. The blessing is complete. You are complete. Ancient and modern are one. Sleep now completely, safely, eternally blessed.